Yeah. All right. Everybody, we're very excited to have this man back with me to talk about Survivor 44. It's not Jam Jam, it's the Jam Man, Jamal Shipman.
Hey, what's going on, Rob? What is
How
going
are you?
on? I am good. I am good. It's it's funny you open that way because my colloquial nickname all throughout high school and college was Jam.
Okay.
So
Not Jam Jam.
not Jam Jam, but I'm having a very fun time listening to Jam Jam and just connecting. I'm connecting with him.
You're connecting with him. What does it say on your shirt?
Oh, it says hashtag Team
Oh,
Jamal
Team
Cesternino.
Jamal.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So the story behind this shirt that I'm wearing is that John, Janet's husband from my season,
Yes. Yes.
surprised all of us with our own personal team shirts after the show. So I was very excited to
That's very nice.
the team. Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jamal, we got a great episode to talk about
Yes,
this
sir.
week. So looking forward to getting into all of that with you. But what's going on in your world, not as far as Survivor goes?
Oh my goodness. I am not doing much different. So all of the major pillars of my life are pretty much the same, except for one major one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually going to be my first public announcement of this. So I'm a little nervous.
Wait, you're running?
I am not running.
Oh,
No, I'm not in shape. I'm not running. But no, I'm engaged, Rob. I am I
congratulations.
am engaged
Yes.
to be married of my partner of 6 years. I finally figured it out. It took me that long. I was assessing the situation. I had to
Yeah.
really, read the character, read the situation, and I think after 6 years, I think it's time. I think it's
You've read the character. The character is good.
that's right.
Okay. Do you have any details or anything, or we're just very much at the early stages?
It is early stages. It is early stages. So I'm doing all the normal, boring wedding planning
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But of course, it's the first time I'm ever doing this. So of course, it's like the most exciting thing. So we locked in the
Sure.
DJ already, and actually, Survivor Connect, Mr. Aaron Meredith from my season, actually
Yes, he has all the
recommended.
hookups.
He has all the hookups, especially in Rhode Island. So he recommended this DJ. I met with him. He sounds great. So we got that
Mm-hmm.
locked in. We got the venue. We got the date. Now I just have to find a way to have some hard conversations with some extended family, which is always fun. So,
What extended family of like people that are not making the cut? Is that
oh, absolutely. Oh no, this is going to be cutthroat.
okay?
There's going to be some broken hearts. Survivor trained me well for this task of whittling down this invite list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Had you run into season 44's Bruce in your area?
I have actually. He reached out. Can I tell this whole story about Bruce?
Sure. It depends which story it's going to
No,
be,
no,
but
no. He's great. He's great. So we have run into him. I actually was at his watch party uh, during the premiere.
sure.
So he was talking to us, me and Aaron. We all hung out for a little bit as it was ramping up. He was like, "Oh, I'm so excited to be on the season," and we were so amped for him. Right? We're like, "Oh, another Rhode Islander! Like, yeah, man! I'm so excited to see you. Just kill it out there." He said not a word, like completely mum on the what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're there at his watch party, like big, huge party at a pool hall, TVs everywhere, decorations, food, the whole thing. And we're watching it. And you know how it happened, right? That first scene, slow motion. And we're like, oh man, and then we were worried. And then he didn't go home right away. So we were like,
Yeah.
oh, whew,
Bounce
close,
back. Yeah.
bounce back, like cool. Like that was a scare, but he's going to make it deep into the season now. And then he gets evacuated. And it my heart just completely sank for this man because let me tell you, I don't I'm actually pretty close to the vest with my effusive praise of people
Yeah.
just kind of a little bit more discerning.
You don't want him to get a big head, Jamal,
I
like
don't
Robin Sandra had on your season.
exactly. I don't mind. Bruce is an amazing, amazing man, and I could not be more happy for him that he gets to play Survivor again. That's one of the best things that could have come from this is that we get a guaranteed another,
Yeah.
another shot at this. So he's awesome. Yeah, he's really good.
Okay.
Oh, and
So,
actually, uh,
yes.
the first time I met Bruce was he called me about my car insurance.
About your car insurance.
The job that he had, I was just like on his list to like call and follow up with something, but from his job.
And so he cold called you and then said, "Hey, do you happen to be the Jamal Shipman from Survivor?"
He did the whole call, and I was just being regular, like, oh, the car insurance, blah, blah. And then at the end of it, he was like, dude, so check this out. I know who you are. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then he revealed he's a Survivor fan and all this stuff. It was the wildest thing.
And this was a cold call, Jamal?
Cold call. I had some car insurance stuff.
And you didn't get like a spam likely, or this was you were calling them?
No, he was calling me to follow up with something.
Okay.
Going on with his car. And he didn't give it away or anything like that. And then I met him later as a Survivor person, and he had to remind me that he was the guy on the phone. It was nuts. It was absolutely crazy. So small world as things go in Rhode Island.
Okay, and he was good. You recommend him?
I recommend
stars.
Him.
Yes.
5 stars. He's the one you want. Absolutely. He'll hook you up.
Okay. All right. Yeah, he kind of got like in the insurance policy on his Survivor. Do you think that that's what it is? Is that like he had like some sort of like Survivor medical insurance where it's like, okay, well, I'll pay extra, but if anything happens to me, like I want to be like getting another opportunity.
100%. And let that be a lesson to us all that go for the high deductible. You know what I'm saying? Okay. You don't know what's going to happen in life. So
yeah, you never know. You never know. Okay. So Jamal, let's talk about where we are at right now. And, I really thought this was a super exciting episode, and we really do have a lot to work through strategically from this vote, because we got a real final 10 vote for the first time in the new era. And ultimately, Brandon ends up going out. I know you said you listened to the exit interview with Brandon. What did you think about what he had to say today?
Well, first of all, I have so much respect for that brother. Like, I felt very connected to him. I saw myself in him in a lot of ways, and unfortunately in more ways than positive, because I feel like the way that he described the way he was out there, maybe I might have fallen a little bit prey to some of the ways that he felt comfortable in the game. So I just felt very connected to his journey, right? The big guy, second vote of the merge, second, third, I don't know. What are we doing? Purgatory, I don't know where we are.
Yeah.
But I went out around this time.
So
I completely connected with his story.
Yeah.
But he is awesome. He has a good read of the game. There were a couple of things that stood out to me that he said that I think could be real, like, insight and like lessons for future Survivor players, right? Or it gives us some insight into like the psyche of what was going on out there. May I name a couple? Is that okay?
Please.
Okay, so one of the things he was saying, right, was he kept saying "we" all the time. He was like, yeah, like he was in with us, jam. We kept him, we thought that blah blah blah, and us, and I was like, dude, it was an individual game. Like, he, for some reason, not for some reason, I know what happens out there, right? You just get really sucked into this like team mentality, and if you don't flip that switch like you see players do when the merge happens, you get used as a pawn of someone else's individual game. And that's definitely what happened for him. He just got caught up thinking that it really was us versus them. He's a former football player, so of course he has this like us versus them type mentality, and he didn't quite break out of that quick enough for his own game. And we'll definitely dive into it. But I thought that was really interesting. Just even just listening to him talk about the game all these months later, he's still held on to this, like, yeah, it was a war between my tribe and that tribe. And it's like, wow, so you really got sucked into this dichotomy that you felt was going on, and you got bit by that, because it seemed like it lowered his guard of how vulnerable he actually was.
Jamal, you said that there were things that he fell victim to that you felt that you could relate to. Well, what were some of those things?
Yeah. So another one of the things that he said, which of course all of us who dissect the game and know, what not to do, like the big faux pas of playing Survivor, is he said, not me, he said it. He said that he locked in the vote against Franny, and he didn't check in with anybody for the rest of the time. He's there painting the flag, and all of a sudden they said, oh, it's time for tribal. And he was like, oh crap, like I didn't get to like check in and make sure. of course the vote moved. Like, of course that's what happened. And so what I think I related to was that was me, my second episode, right? When I got blindsided when I was in on Vokai. They blindsided my side of the tribe split because I was like, we're good. We have a plan. Everyone seems good with the plan, and I don't have to like worry about it. I wasn't quite as lazy as the show portrayed me, but I do think that I took my eye off of the strategizing and the scrambling aspect of that pre-tribal moment. And so I get it. But that deep in the game, there's kind of, it's hard to make excuses for that, to feel so comfortable that you don't continue to work or continue to confirm for yourself what the plan is, and notice people scrambling and talking and all that, right? So that was what I was really like, okay, I get it, and I feel for you, and I connect with that experience. But man, real Survivor faux pas there, huh?
Yeah, it's interesting with Brandon and talking about this vote split. And, he said that he was working on the tribe flag and kind of did run out of time. And I wonder if, like, is this a bug or a feature of the new era, that it does seem as though players, and again, I don't know, I know that there is like, only 26 days, and sort of like we have like only like 2 days in between tribal councils, but it also seems like more than ever, it seems like that there are stories that they get back from the challenge, and it seems like that they have only like 2 or 3 hours before they're going to tribal council. And I just feel like that we regularly hear about players just like ran out of time to do stuff.
Yeah, but if you think about it, I don't know that that specific piece of it is all that different, right? Because it was always the case that
That's why it seems odd to me. Maybe it's just, are there so many moving parts now? Like, it just seems like that this is like much more recurring than I feel like than, you know, 10 seasons ago with players saying, yeah, we just ran out of time before tribal council.
I mean, maybe, right? I don't know exactly how much time they're giving to the players there, but I think the effect of the shorter season, I mean, sorry, yeah, the shorter season is the shorter time out there is definitely the like first name out tends to be the plan, right? Like people just kind of latch on to it and make sure it's not them, and then it doesn't move too much. Whereas
Hmm.
I feel like in previous seasons we like watched it go one way and then see information swirl, and then the next day it goes another way, and right, you can really tell that full story. But here it just seems like the plan just like materializes, and people are so frantic and so afraid to maybe make a move, or to like move the dynamic, that they're just like, oh, it's not me, so I'm gonna let it happen.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting, definitely interesting.
I wonder if maybe like that down day that players used to have normally in between, like, you have a reward challenge, then a day with nothing, and then ultimately tribal counts. I wonder if like any of the pre planning was really going on that down day. And then so it's like, okay, all right, well, like we worked out like all the scenarios. And then if this person wins immunity, if this person wins immunity, and we sort of know what we're doing, as opposed to this is just like much more of like a frantic breakneck pace.
Right. And actually, if we can hold on to that, I think that's what bleeds into decisions made at tribal, right?
Yeah.
I think when you're at tribal, and I've obviously listened to a bunch of what you have said with previous guests, and I think there's like I think we're all prey to forget that the players don't actually know, right?
Yeah.
They don't actually know, right? So there's a lot of like, oh well, if he would have just played the idol for then, and he should have known that the tribe was gonna, right? Like there's a lot of that talk, and I just think players make the decision with their vote or however they move to be the right thing for them in the most possible scenarios that can happen. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you want to get too much into the tribal just yet, but that's kind of what I was starting to kind of coalesce around as I was thinking
Yeah.
about.
Let's go there.
Yeah. So the moment that I was thinking about was, Jam Jam and Carson, I guess, right? Both knew that
Hmm.
that what's his face was going to play his idol for Franny, but they didn't know, right? They were told maybe possibly, but they didn't know, right? So to vote for Franny, not only was that what Brandon said and what I think we all kind of feel, which is like it was just them hiding, right? It's them playing the middle and not ruffling too many feathers and pretending that they also got blindsided by the idol play. But I also think there's an element of like, he might not play the idol, right? And so I don't want to be caught voting for Brandon and then have that not be the actual result of the vote. And now I'm here having lied to Brandon. Brandon's still in the game. And now I've just destroyed these connections. Jam Jam explains it to us. He literally says, I'm going to go forward and keep all my options open for myself going forward. He says that to us. So I definitely can understand the mentality of the players when they're like, I could make a big move now. I could do this. I could do that. But I don't actually know what the other pieces are going to do. So whatever happens, I think the safest way forward for the most scenarios that can play out is for me to do this. Right.
Yeah. I cannot really remember another time off the top of my head where players like voted for somebody like knowing that their vote was going to get nullified by the hidden immunity idol. Like, I'm sure it has happened, but I am hard pressed to remember a scenario where that did happen as part of like, okay, I know that this person is going to play the idol. I'm going to like put my votes on them. My votes will be nullified.
Yeah, with that kind of level of intentionality, right? Like, I'm having trouble remembering an instance of that as well.
I'm sure we will hear from people who do remember a time. But it's interesting that this has been a season where people have like been trying to maximize using their votes in ways that they disappear. They don't have a vote, and it like where Matthew in the first episode talked about it that hey, I want to use the shot in the dark in this specific way to make my vote disappear because I don't want to have to pick a side. It was really like Matthew really did set the tone, even though a lot of people didn't know what he did at the time, and especially not even like Jam Jam and Carson, unless Matthew might have like had a conversation with Carson. But Matthew was like, hey, I want this to go a certain way. And I don't want to have to draw a line in the sand. And when I talked to Matthew in his exit interview, he was very proud of what he did there. And then you had where, Matt at the merge, like he didn't have to cast a vote. So he was feeling like pretty decently about what he was able to do. And then here we had where, Carson and Jam Jam got to, basically, waste a vote.
Yeah, but it's the natural conclusion. Oh, sorry.
And really, if we could tie back to Heidi and go back to what she did last week, because the more we learn about what she did, it really did seem like that she was trying to not have the biggest possible impact with her advantage. She was trying to, how do I like, cast this rock into the lake with making the smallest possible ripple?
Right. And that's it. Right. And this is the natural evolution of the game we've been watching for the past couple of seasons, where we have seen the winner pull their move at 6-5 and then, run the table at the end. Right. Like it is what you're supposed to do. And we've been talking about this forever. Right. Like people just flame out with their big moves. And unfortunately, I do think Danny is now in the crossfire for that exact reason. Everybody was like inching right up to the line of making a big move, right? Heidi had this big advantage. No, I want to play it in a way where I'm not ruffling feathers. Jam Jam could have told everybody about Danny's idol and flipped the vote and got Dan, but no, I'm just going to hide my vote, right? Just exactly what you just described. And that is unfortunately for us, because I think it does make for some boring gameplay, obviously. And that's Survivor's trying to shake up with all of this crazy twist nonsense, which I'm sure we will get into. But if you're just thinking strategically, like, yes, that's what you do. And if I was advising Danny, I would have said, stop it. Let Franny go. Right? Or try to get the 6 votes on Brandon like you thought you were trying to do. And then see if it happened. But it wasn't going to be you. I know he thought it could have been which then meant that he should have played the idol for himself. But since he didn't play the idol for himself, he was pretty confident that the vote wasn't him. So if you're that confident that the vote is not you, chill out, sit down, shut up.
Okay.
You know,
Great. Well,
get 10.
There's so much to get into with this. Now, Jamal, I have been doing some research about this and I have been going through the history of the show because I do as this series, The Burning Question, where I've been like really digging into one big question I have from the episode. And I've really been trying to look into the idea of playing an idol for your alliance rather, and whether or not this is a good idea. And I've gone through and I've looked at the history of the show and I looked at all the different times that people played idols for other people and people in their alliance. And Jamal, I happen to have forgotten this, but I was reminded in my research today that you played a hidden immunity idol before the merge on Nora.
I sure did. I think I can speak to this. I think I have some substantive insight to share about this concept. But I am on the edge of my seat. I would love to learn the result of your extensive research. What do you have?
I'm not done yet. I'm still in the process of, and I do think that this conversation will help color that. Some of the findings that we might come to, I think might help me in what direction I ultimately end up going in my conclusion. But I would love to hear from you because also that Kelly Kim played and she handed an idol to Dean, which then he played, which ultimately idled, negated those votes and idled Jack out of the game, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yes.
Those are the chess pieces that moved around that day.
Like a tribal council. I would love to also get from you, your experience, playing the idol for Nora, and then ultimately how that may have changed your relationship. Like, what did it buy you to play an idol for another person?
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into this because I think this is there are like 3 or 4 moments, and you could probably pick them all out that people still to this day message me about. Just random straggles going through the Survivor archives. And one of them is this one. Why on earth would you do that? Oh my gosh, that was so dumb. Why would you do that? And they're not wrong, obviously, the way it turned out. But here's the thing. When I was back at camp, I put in so much work, Rob. I talked to Nora for hours. And Nora, that is not casual, chill time when you talk to Nora for 3 hours, right? Like this is like high energy. And we were butting heads a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So we had to do all this like, well, back on Vokai, you were coming for me and no, I wasn't. And I thought we had a connection and blah, blah, blah. Like we did all this work and that interaction ended with a hug, with emotional, like, thank you so much. You've helped me see myself in different ways. And I really see you differently now. And we're connected and it's you and us to the end, right? Like we put in work to create this bond. And the reason why I worked so hard at it was because it was a relationship between me and Nora that was really obviously contentious. It was obvious, right? So players were actually using my tension with Nora in their own strategy. Ooh, let's like fan the flames. Let's like tell Jamal this, that Nora said this. Let's tell Nora that Jamal said this, right? Like they were using that tension. So I was like, okay, we're going to squash it because I already know Nora's getting to the end, right? I tried to take out Nora.
You could see it. Yeah.
Nora's making it to the end. I need to hitch myself to her, right? It wasn't the other way around. I need to get in with her because she's going to be the one to take me through the end. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so because I did all that work that day, I knew that Dean was told to vote for Nora by some of my people. So we all thought that he was going to vote Nora. We were all going to vote Dean. Call it a day. I go forward with this beautiful alliance that I've now forged with Nora. When Dean played the idol, I was like, crap. Dean is still going to vote for Nora because he thinks maybe that me and Jack are also going to vote for Nora and he wants to be in with us. Naive, but whatever. It was the scenario that I thought was happening. And remember, I had like a split second
right
to understand all that was going on in this moment. So the thought process was, let me save her with this idol and completely tie her to me. And if it had worked, I do think I would have bought a lot of loyalty from Nora. It didn't work, but it still got me a vote. It still
Mm-hmm.
got me a vote because the Dan vote at the merge, when we ended up merging and voting, and it was Kelly that went home, she stayed with us, and that Dan vote started with me and Nora talking and thinking that maybe we can move the vote
Mm-hmm.
off of Missy and on to Dan.
Yeah.
So that's what it bought me. It bought me a vote. It didn't work, and so then, you know, the rest is history. But that was the like split second mentality of, okay, let me use the idol to like buy myself cooperation from
Yeah.
my nemesis, right? And sneakily, you know, work under the radar with this person to try to move the people I don't want here anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like it's not exactly the same scenario, but I almost feel like that similar to like Danny and Matt on Soka when Matt was kind of at the bottom of Soka, but then after he found the hidden immunity idol, the fake hidden immunity idol, like it almost like, okay, well now I have to now I can't let him go now. I've already like put in all this work to try to string him along with the fake immunity idol. And in some ways, you're sort of like end up being like kind of like pot committed to this person that you're putting in a lot of work on.
That's it. Pot committed is the perfect metaphor or simile or whatever
Hmm.
lyrical phrases. Yes, that's it. It is. You feel like you have you had like a little bit of tunnel vision, which again, all this is. I'm not saying this is great survivor strategy. I'm just describing what happened for me. I
Yeah,
understand.
and I appreciate it because that I want to like really understand, you know, what makes somebody want to play an idol on another player when
Yes.
it's the one thing that you have that could protect yourself to use it on somebody else. You know, I really enjoy hearing that calculus.
Yeah, and you know, add to that that I was deathly afraid of going home with the idol in
Hmm.
my pocket, which, as we all know, is like the thing that keeps survivor players up at night, and the nightmare of doing that.
Hmm.
And you know, playing it wrong. Like if I play it for myself incorrectly, I think that for some reason I feel like that's even worse. Like I feel like that puts the target on your back. Like, oh, and no one knew about it, right? So not only will I have played it for myself and didn't need to, but it would have been the big reveal that I had been keeping this secret from everybody.
Yeah,
And that's immediately like, oh, no. We can't have this person hanging around anymore because he won't give us information.
yeah.
We don't trust him, yada, yada. So to play it the way I did, the potential for it to work in the moment felt worth it
Hmm.
compared to
Because
all the ways it could have gone wrong later.
there are even when it doesn't work, and we saw for Danny, it did work. He did save Franny, and he gets this on his resume. Now, I do wonder if okay, now he has made this move, and what we have seen in the last couple of seasons, specifically going back to your most recent podcast appearance, where we went through the Jesse move, where he took Cody out of the game, and everybody saw, oh, Jesse did that ish, was said from the jury box. And you at the time said, I don't think this is going to work out for Jesse. And ultimately, it didn't. Danny, he does pull this off. He makes a big move. And now I think people are going to really like have like some eyes on Danny in terms of what he did. But one of the things that I think we should also explore is that you sort of are now framed as the type of person who would play an idol on another player. And I think that that's a net positive thing. People, I think, want to work with you once they see that you are willing to play an idol on another person.
I think I'm going to softly disagree.
Okay, good.
Only because the swiftness with which I received from my tribe the like label of a gamer, right? The swiftness with which people see you make a survivor move and then you are dangerous, right? You are sneaky, you're sly, you're clever, you're smart, you're good at challenges, whatever that thing is that you do really well, and people like zoom in on your game. That's it. It does with every passing episode, right? With every person getting voted out, your perception as a gamer, someone who like is playing hard, right, gets more and more of a liability.
Hmm.
And so to do that so early, big mistake on my part, big mistake on Danny's part, in terms of like being known as someone who's willing to take the big swing, right? People want to work with the shyer, more laid back, more like aloof, not know what's going on kind of player, because they, have this mentality that I'll take them to the end and I can beat them easily, right? At this point in the game where they are right now, it is not a good thing. It is not a good thing to be known as like a true gamer, because as soon as people start, washing the mud off their face after a challenge, they're like, yo, Danny didn't win immunity. He's dangerous. He's got to go. That's exactly what happened to Brandon, right? He didn't win. He's big. He's athletic. He's dangerous. Those are the 3 words. Literally, those are quotes. Big, athletic, dangerous. And he obviously can't do anything about that because that's just how he's built. But it's not a good thing. And when I came back from Island of the Idols and I did that nonsense with the, legacy advantage, everybody was like, absolutely not. He's playing hard. We got to get him out of here.
So one of the things with Danny and his idol and making this move on Franny, it did seem a little bit like when we look at some of the pieces from last week, were the walls closing in on Danny a little bit in terms of people clocking that he had the idol? So was he feeling like, hey, I gotta burn this thing soon because people are figuring out that I have it based off of now I was able to sort of like pawn it off that Josh had it. Obviously, Josh didn't have it. And now Matt told a lot of people he thinks he had a fake idol.
Mm-hmm. It's unclear, isn't it, that if Danny knows that Matt figured it out? Is that still unclear?
Yeah, that is unclear. We don't know if Danny knows that Matt figured it out, but a lot of people seem to think that Matt figured it out. What was interesting, if anybody didn't hear the exit interview with Brandon, that he thought that there was a realistic possibility that Matt actually did have the real idol from Soka, and that he was just showing people the fake idol because Brandon would know that there was a real and a fake. And the fact that he didn't have his bag and that he was so upset about, hey, can I get my bag? Where's my bag? I need my bag. And Brandon felt like, hey, who's that upset about not having the shot in the dark? Mm-hmm. And Brandon was at a tribal council where somebody hit the shot in the dark.
Quick correction, Rob. It's pronounced beg. Okay.
Okay.
Beg. We need to get our bag. We don't have our bag with us. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's
Carolyn
true.
corrected
That's
us.
true. That's true. Thank you.
Pronounce this word that's spelled B-A-G, but it's pronounced beg, apparently. I thought that was a really funny conversation.
Yeah.
So yes, right. So where the idol was not solid yet. And as Danny was revealing his plan to play the idol for Franny, it seemed like lots of players were newly learning that he had the idol. Jam Jam didn't know. He was, and now he tells me he has an idol. Love Jam Jam. But yeah, so I don't think that Danny was in as much danger for that reason. I think he could have held on to it at least one more tribal, especially because it wasn't on him, it just wasn't on him. And if he had, because he seemed really upset to find out that Jam Jam knew that his plan was to, protect Franny, and he started to play out that possibly Jam Jam could go to the others, right? Mm-hmm. And switch the vote onto Danny after Danny gives his idol away, or before Danny plans to give his idol away to Franny. So I don't think, I think he did himself no service by making this move. I really don't see the overwhelming plus side to doing this, mm-hmm. Like why? So what is Franny doing for him game wise right now? What do you think? I don't see the utility.
So it's such a good question of like to make this move now, whereas he obviously wants to protect his numbers for Soka, but this isn't a situation where Soka has like a clear majority where they're going to be able to sort of just like control this thing to the end based off of this one vote. He's going to keep Franny in the game, but still, like, now what? That it's not necessarily even buying anything. And there is definitely a possibility that we could see Tika adopt the pendulum strategy, and they could go back and vote with Ratu this next episode.
Yeah, yeah. Well, two things here, just to dig into this. I'm purposefully not saying tribe names because I cannot keep them straight.
I
So
can call them colors if you want.
I'm no, do this because
Okay.
that's what I was saying. I appreciate your ability to keep all the lines straight here between tribe alliances. But there's a couple of things here, right? Like, first of all, why Franny, especially when you have severed her from Matt, right?
Right.
Usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Survivor historian, but when you make a power move to split the power couple, the dregs of that power couple who are left become obsolete, right? There's no longer a
Hmm.
threat there, right? They move on to the next target because they've taken out the couple threat. Heidi even made that declaration like, okay, now that Matt's gone, we can pull Franny in. She's with us, right? So actually don't understand why Franny was a target for anybody.
Yes. So I did ask Brandon about this. So why Franny from the people from Soka, and he seemed very impressed with her ability in the challenges. And I do think that there is something else there worth exploring of whether or not it is a good thing to win a like first immunity challenge after the merge. And I know in your case that you like had a very strong showing in one of the first immunity challenges after the merge. And then, with was it Missy and Aaron, then, won those both won immunity and then got both voted out during the tribe switch.
Mhm.
So that these early immunity wins, like it's like, okay, oh, people are like, oh, that person's a big threat. That person's got to go. They're good and they're gonna win all the challenges.
I just don't. Maybe I don't know. I'm just putting myself out there in all these seasons, right? And like, what would I be thinking? That's why you have me on.
Yeah.
you know, I don't have that. That one to me doesn't is not inspiring. I feel very inspired by a lot of strategy. Like if somebody came to me and dropped this incredible like strategy, let's get this person out because of this, I'd be like, oh my god, that's amazing, that's genius, let's go, let's do it. This one, if somebody was like, oh, he's a challenge beast, we're really threatened by his or her ability to do challenges. At this point in the game, it doesn't inspire me to think that to be good strategy.
Right.
Only in the sense that it's galvanizing, only in the sense that I can get more people maybe against that person for that reason. But personally, I'm not threatened by a good challenge player at this point in the game. Honestly, it's a shield, right? For me, right? It
Yeah.
would be actually awesome to work with the people who are killing the challenges because I know that they're going to amass some power in the game. They'll win immunity. If I'm working with them, I won't be the target of whatever they have going on. I don't know. I feel like there should be a different reaction to someone being good at the challenges. It's becoming like Survivor law, and I think it's still up for debate. It's still a
Hmm.
bill. It's still a bill at this point, and I still want to debate about the utility
Yeah.
of
I mean,
target.
I don't think it's such a great strategy. It's just something that happens. And I feel like that there was like a little bit of like even though there was the Soka Ratu war allegedly like sort of like brewing, like I do feel like that there was like a little bit of a kinship still between Brandon and Danny
Mm,
from like the merges where Brandon did not seem to be wanting to or outwardly target Danny. And I also feel like that Heidi and Lauren seemed like that, okay, maybe they don't want to be like directly targeting each other. And
yeah.
it's sort of like, like I get the sense that, uh, like, Danny wanted to target Lauren, but Heidi would have rather targeted Brandon, and like maybe vice versa. Also, it's like, okay, well, not my friend from the other group, and
Mhm.
Franny was like the compromise of like, okay, that's the easy one. That's not your person, that's not my person. It's the other one.
Okay, and you know what? That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I like that. Where let's just agree on the common denominator here, right?
Mhm.
Let's you cross one out, I'll cross one out, and let's just land on whatever's left. And
Because Jamal, the wildest thing I thought in this episode is that we see Brandon and Lauren and Kane that they're telling Heidi and Danny about the vote tonight, I guess it's going to be Franny. Like, okay, Franny, sure, we'll do that. I mean, it is wild that 9 people were, getting the name Franny.
Yeah, yeah, and this is what I'm saying, right? This like immediacy of the first name out, and everyone now knows you don't say no in Survivor, right? You're like, oh yeah, sure, great plan, absolutely awesome, and you just kind of go with it, hoping that everyone else is doing the same thing. And again, it's not your name, so what do you have? What dog do you have in the fight to try to stick your neck out for someone, unless you're Danny and that side of the thing that voted for Brandon. But yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like the Franny play.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't like it.
All right. In terms of what happens next, do you feel like that this buys any loyalty from Franny? You said you felt like that you got 1 vote from Nora. We've seen like this group of misfits talking about how they want to potentially vote together. Do you feel like that Franny is now trying to, keep Danny safe in any way?
Remind me to come back to this Misfits idea, but I will answer this question first. No, no, I don't. And the reason why is because, first of all, wasn't Franny gunning for Danny earlier?
In last week's episode there, she was part of conversations with Kane and Carson and Matt about, hey, that Danny wants to blindside Lauren, but we're going to actually blindside Danny.
Yeah. So I think Danny might be miscalculated. Danny's a really fun character. Love him to death. I think he's really great.
Seems like a great guy.
Excellent Survivor mind. He's playing. He's having a good time. He's bringing joy to
incredibly gassy.
Yes, definitely that, for sure. But I just don't think that Franny is the kind of player to succumb to this very superficial Survivor loyalty card.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't think Franny has enough social capital to keep any votes off of Danny.
Yeah.
And Franny is astute enough and adaptable enough to know that should the vote go towards Danny, she should not get in the way. Like, everybody saw Danny play the idol for her, right? So she is definitely not gonna, go too far out there to protect him if he's, putting the target on himself. So no,
yeah.
This is why I really don't agree with this play. I just don't see the end utility here for him to have saved her. She does not seem like the one to use loyalty.
Yeah.
To decide what her next move is.
The ultimate irony just occurred to me where, okay, that, we have Soka trying to get these votes onto Brandon. Okay. Danny ought to have you got the votes on Brandon and played the idol for Brandon, because he's the type of player who actually would appreciate a move like that. He would say, he is a team guy, a loyalty guy. And I think that should be part of the equation of like, what type of person is this? And if somebody is like a real loyalty person, yeah, you should play your idol on that person. Like, could you imagine if Danny played the idol on Brandon and saved Brandon? Like, I feel like that they would be like, Brandon would be locked in with Danny the rest of the way.
And you know what, Rob? What you have just done, what you have demonstrated for us all with your Survivor know-how, is how to read people that you're playing the game with, right? Not to go all the way back to my very first appearance here, but right, the point of the game is that you're playing that particular game with that group of people, right? So to be out here saying that's just a bad strategy, that's a bad move, that doesn't work, this doesn't work, that's not how the game works, right? It works for some people and it doesn't work for other people. And what you just described is exactly how you play this game, right? You assess what's important to the people you're playing the game with, and that is exactly what's important to Brandon. That would have locked him in, boys.
I think it might have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you said, go back to your first appearance. You're talking about from Winners at War.
Yes. I feel like I've been beating this drum for a long time because I think I've been feeling a little salty about some of the ways that people talk about the game. In the interwebs. And it's just, when you come up with rules and like, this is how you do it, that's a bad move.
Oh yeah.
I understand that there's some patterns that have floated to the top here. But just because something didn't work didn't mean it was a bad move, right? It's just a move that didn't work with that person or group of people. And maybe that's the mistake, right? The mistake might be you misread the situation. But to play an idol for Brandon, exactly what you just said, that would have been beautiful. To play it for Franny, bad move, because that's not going to get you the same result the way it might have if you did that for Brandon. So that's what I mean. It's just one of those things that sticks with me as I kind of think about the game with you all.
I want to get your perspective on then Jam's decision that we saw him thinking about in the episode, the idea of potentially going back and trying to get Brandon to then flip the vote onto because for Jam, I think that also I don't know like what type of relationship he had with Danny. It seems like that he had more of a relationship with Heidi, certainly. But he had just gotten done from like putting in all this work with Brandon. So I think that there were probably reasons for Jam that he might have wanted Brandon to stay in the game. He did have the opportunity to potentially go and signal to Brandon to switch the votes to Danny. Brandon said in his exit interview, Jam implied or hinted that they might put a vote onto Brandon, but didn't seem to like say it was a 5-alarm fire. Right. So do you think that Jam missed an opportunity?
No, I don't. And here's what takes me right back to the first thing I said, right? Which is you don't actually know. You don't actually know what's going to happen. So Jam, in the moment that he told Brandon that Danny was coming for him or some votes were coming his way, Jam didn't know if it would be majority votes on Brandon. Mm-hmm. He didn't know that, right? He didn't know that. He didn't know if Danny was going to play the idol. Didn't know it, right? So what I think Jam was doing, maybe, is if Brandon is here tomorrow,
yeah,
I want Brandon to know that I gave him the heads up that he was going to get some votes tonight. You see what I'm saying? So like if Danny went home for whatever ways that happened, Jam was positioning himself to be an informant and to lock in trust with still existing Brandon in the game. Mm-hmm. This is what you have to do out there, right? You have to put pieces in place in case anyone is here tomorrow, right? You don't want to put all your eggs you don't want to treat Brandon like garbage, thinking he's going to go home and then he's here again. And now you've burned that bridge.
Right.
So I don't think it was a missed opportunity. Like I said, I think he gave himself the most options with all the possibilities that could have taken place.
Yeah. I mean, feel like you're describing sort of like it's like the roulette table. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna put I'll put a chip here, put a chip here, put a chip here. Like, all right, I'm covered in a lot of different ways depending on how this spin goes.
That 100%. That is absolutely what I think a good, thoughtful Survivor player does. And what I think is unfortunate about the game is that not enough players get enough credit for what they decide not to do. Not enough players get enough credit for what they decide not to do in the name of strategy, right? So let's stick with Jam. Jam decided not to tell everyone that, Danny had the idol, he was going to play right. He decided not to do that as a strategic move. He didn't miss it, right? He didn't not consider it. He didn't make a mistake, right? He actually considered it and said, no, that does not set me up to be successful in as many ways as possible going forward. So let me decide not to do it. And there can be a whole show about what Survivor players decide not to do in the name of their strategy. And I wish we had a way to like really reward or like acknowledge that as just as much of a strategic
That's play. Our job here, Jamal.
Okay, so here we are.
Steven can give out a fishy. Yeah.
Great. I wasn't gonna go with the fishy, but I was gonna go with some kind of award for that concept. And
do you want to make an award?
I want that one. That's the one. I want an award for a Survivor player who decides not to do something in furtherance.
What are we calling it?
Strategy. I mean, it could just
the shippy.
It could be the shippy. It could be the jam. I mean, mm-hmm. We have a whole lot of double entendres here we could work with.
Yeah. All right. Let me see where else we should go with this, because I don't want to go away from the vote just yet. Anything else about this particular vote that really got your attention?
Yes. Thank you for setting me up for this, because I do want to return to this idea of the rock, paper, scissors, right?
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors is an amazing game, right? Simple. I play rock, you play paper, you win. I play scissors, you play paper, I win, right? But the whole psychology of the game is this never ending, right? Travel down. Well, if you think I'm going to play paper and you're going to play rock, and I think you think I'm going to play paper, so I'm going to play scissor, and right. And so you could just do that over and over and over again. And like I explained to you a couple of years ago, you do that 9 times and you get back to the original game, the original pairing, right? If you do a bunch of like, well, you think I would think, and you think, and I know, and you do, right? You come back right to the starting pair that you were going to throw.
Sure.
So this is exactly what this whole episode was. And this is why we really need these kinds of votes, because the telling of how this story evolved gave us that, right? It was going to be Franny. Then people found out it was going to be Franny. So if it's going to be Franny, then Danny's going to play the idol. Then people found out that he was going to play the idol. So if he's going to play the idol, then we're going to tell them that he's going to play the idol, and blah, blah, right? And so it's just kind of the information kind of pathway of, well, I know that he's gonna, then so he's gonna, so I'm
Sure.
gonna, that whole thing. The like the thing that makes survivors go crazy is trying to figure out where to stop, right? And to Danny's credit, he found out where to stop accurately, right? So that his plan worked. We just talked about why I don't think it was actually a good move. But what if Danny continued and he was like, well, Jam Jam knows that I plan to play the idol for Franny, so Jam Jam must have told everyone to switch the votes to me. So if everyone's going to vote for me, then I'm actually going to play the idol for myself, right? And if he would have kept going, then he would have played the idol incorrectly. And so I just think that telling that story is, to me, what makes Survivor really fun, right? What really the storytellers, the editors, whatever the game design is should.
If you want to know more about the editors, I've got a podcast for you, Jamal.
What podcast is that, Rob?
Check out the official Survivor podcast.
Wow, do they do like deep dives into the episode?
Into the editing.
Wow, okay, great.
Yeah. Jamal, we haven't even had the knowledge is power yet in this season. And I feel like that's sort of like the idea that the whole knowledge is power is based on.
That if you know that someone has it, then you can take it, and then you can, right? Yeah, for sure, right? It definitely plays with it. Kind of interrupts that.
Yeah,
that train.
I mean, that's got to be coming. I mean, there's no way we're not getting knowledge is power.
I don't know. Do you like it? Do you like knowledge is power? The way
so I'm a little conflicted on it. I personally, from a game mechanic, and I feel like maybe that's not the least fun phrase in all of Survivor podcasting, but I feel like that in my gut, I still don't feel like it's fair that you could take somebody else's thing just because you know they have it. I will say it has created some very memorable TV moments over the 3 seasons it's been a part of.
I think that's right. Yeah, and if you think about what they're trying to do,
I know Jeff loves it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and they all love it because it tells a story, and it kind of forces the players to try to be sneaky and do the shell game with where's the idol, and we got this storyline with Dwight last season. Oh my gosh, that was really great. That people thought he had it, but he actually gave it away. Right, the whole thing is really good.
Yeah.
Do I think we're getting it? Do you think it's too late? Wouldn't it have already come into the game, or is this about now when it comes
in? So going back to the times in the past seasons, Liana got it right before the merge in 41. Drea got it. I'm sure. I'm trying to remember exactly when it happened. I'm not sure if that was when she like had to put her hand in the red paint, or if it was like on one of the journeys. And then the second time it came into the game, James got it. I think it was at the final 11. I think it was it was like they came back from doing the big challenge, and then ultimately it maybe it was maybe it was final 12. But it was like right after the merge.
Okay. But in this setup where we are right now, there's a steal a vote that Lauren has.
She has an extra vote.
Sorry, an extra vote. That's correct. And where's the? Is there another idol somewhere that I'm not?
No, well, Carolyn has an idol, and I mean this is the least amount of advantages that we've had, so we are due for something to pop up.
I hope it's not knowledge is power. I hope it's something else.
Well, there's not that much stuff to steal, to be honest.
That's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm kind of arriving at. Is
Mm-hmm.
it just doesn't seem, especially because at this point everybody knows. No one knows about Carolyn's idol, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, the extra, I don't know. I think it would fall flat right about now if it was knowledge is power, but maybe, I don't know.
And we're definitely going to get another idol hidden in the game.
Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure. And
Mm-hmm.
it seems like Danny is already on the prowl for this thing and
Yeah.
some feathers
well, Jamal, to go back to the whole playing your idol for somebody else. And again, I'm still trying to formulate my thoughts on it that, in the new era, that this is something that I have talked about in the past. I think it was Christian that first brought this up last season, that the idols and the advantages actually have been rather for lack of a better word, been a little impotent in these last couple of seasons. That people like freak out about them, but they have not really had a big impact. We've actually seen 3 successful idol plays in this season, but prior to season 44, there have not been a lot of times where idols and advantages really impacted the votes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is just the result of the idol being the absolute oldest advantage that everybody understands how it works, and they just develop all their strategy around an idol play. Like, no one, except for maybe knowledge is power, I don't know that there's much else to do about an extra vote, a steal a vote, right? Like, it's hard to strategize against these kinds of advantages. The control a vote. Like, what do you do? Like, you can't do anything against that thing. It's just going to happen. Someone's going to play it, and you're just going to be victim to whatever occurs. Whereas an idol, you can actually strategize around. You can split the vote. You can keep it. You blindside, right? You can do all these things game wise, and that makes my bigger point here, which is that is great. That's the exact kind of effect that you want an advantage to have if you're going to have advantages. Like, let it manipulate the strategy instead of surprise the players and have the person who goes home kind of throw up their hands and say, well, there's nothing I could do. Right. It's really sad. It's really sad. And if we could go back to Matt for a second, like, what a shame. Like, we were robbed, no puns intended here, but my goodness, we had a whole beautiful story going. Franny, Matt, they're falling in love out there in Fiji. They're like holding hands. It was so adorable, so cute. Just you rooted for them. Since when do you root for a power couple?
Since when? Yeah.
Every time this happens, this whole collective Survivor fandom says, you dummies, obviously that you shouldn't, so pair up so obviously. But I think collectively we're like, please just go and get married real fast and then come back and play the game because you guys are awesome. And we lost it. We lost that whole story because they tried to get cute with this, split, and right from the challenge, you have to go to the other camp and you can't bring your bag. And now you've like isolated Jam Jam and Matt on this island with these 3, right? And I just feel like I know it was scripted. I know it was like meant to go this way with the way they had it out, but they got to have some flexibility here. Like, we needed to see Matt and Franny play out unencumbered, right? Have that, however that was gonna happen.
Yeah. Wait, you want some sort of like producer veto of like, hey, let's redraw the tribes again?
That's right. That's right. I did.
Hmm.
I did. I wanted them to have observed the fact that they had this beautiful human story occurring.
Hmm.
I wanted them to say, you know what? Let's not do the 11, whatever they had planned for it.
Yeah.
I want to do something where either they're on the same tribe or something, but like it was such a letdown. It was such a letdown to have
Hmm.
him go home the way that he did without any kind of like Franny scrambling to protect him or like Matt, desperately trying to get back to his lover. I don't know. It was just so much
Hmm.
potential there that just was we will never know. We'll never.
Well, I mean, listening to the On Fire official Survivor podcast, Jeff said it was the up to this point. He said it was the best episode of the season, and just loved the human drama of seeing them separated.
No, no, it's not how we wanted it to go. I think that's a misread. It was interesting for what it was, right? And Steven said this best, and I'm going to go with what Steven tells me because he's also a know-it-all, and
Yep.
I respect his prowess. He said, I'm going to enjoy the show that's in front of me, and I'm
Yeah.
going to do that. I'm going to enjoy the show that's in front of me. But by George, we could have had a much better show in front of us if we had some more Matt and Franny airtime.
Well, I didn't know you were such a romantic. I
I
mean, I guess you're engaged. You sense like young love, and you want to be around it.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Hmm.
That's exactly right. Well, I mean, it's not out of the blue either, right? Like I have always been a big proponent of the story of the players driving the narrative. I don't necessarily, if I had to choose, I would rather it be like player-driven strategy that
Sure.
like, results in the vote rather than the players reacting to some surprise twist, right? It's interesting for a moment, but then you're like, man, what could they have done? Like what
Hmm.
done, right? And it's that question to me that I think should be included, right, in the design of twists, right? Like I listen to Jeff. I know what the producers are thinking. They like this, like, oh, we're gonna tell the story about how the players like, incorporate the twist into their game. But I'd rather see them all understand what's happening and then figure out what to do that benefits their own game. And there's so many things they could do that incorporates that element of why the show is interesting. It's not
Hmm.
it's not you guys, Survivor. I'm sorry to tell you, like it's not your like ingenious idea, right, to like mess up the whole game for the players. It's throwing out, some obstacles for the players and then just let it play out. Let them handle it and tell us what it
Sure.
means to them.
And we could go on and on about this.
Oh, sure, 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 sure. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm going down a well-beaten path here.
Yeah, it's a well-traveled pathway that you're going down. That you're preaching to the choir for sure.
Well, I like choirs, so
Um, so and after that, I hope that you can get at least an invite and a +1 to the Frankenship wedding if and when it happens.
I heard that's not the name
And Manny that they like.
that they like Manny. I will absolutely position myself.
I don't think they dislike Frankenship. I think that this just was not the official. They did not come up with it.
Not the official moniker.
Not
They
the
are
official moniker.
Manny.
Um, but okay, so Jamal, here's where I want to tie this back to you. Okay, we saw last week where Brandon and Matt had a conversation about how Matt felt like, it really stinks. Like sometimes, like it just stinks when I know you can get screwed and everything, but it's just the best player doesn't always do the best on Survivor. And Brandon disagreed
Right.
famously. He said he feels like there's always a way out. Now, as somebody who also got royally hosed, do you agree with what Brandon had to say, or are you team Matt on this?
Okay. I think I'm Team Brandon.
Yeah.
I'm Team Brandon here. Not completely, right? Especially what we just discussed, right? There are ways that this game can just screw up your position and you get swap screwed or whatever it is. But if you really think about it, the reason why someone becomes the target is always because of something, right? It's never we're voting for Franny just because. It's never we're voting for Matt just because. It's never we're voting for Brandon just because, right? there was a reason why those people rose up to the site level of threat for a majority of the people voting. And what I think you can do is anticipate that, right? You can anticipate that. So Matt should have known that being so close to Franny was going to immediately put a target on his back as soon as he became vulnerable. That's something he should have known. And so if he knew that, then what his next move should have been was to make sure that people knew that he was not really with her, or he's willing to blindside her if need be to work with you. Here's a good story. Here's a great example. Didn't work out for me, but I was perceived to be in a tight alliance with Molly in the very beginning of my time on the season. And I knew that.
The new poverty.
Yeah, very unfortunate. That was that's just how that played out. But I knew that people were perceiving that. So I said to Janet, and she will corroborate this for you if you ever talk to her. I told Janet before Molly got voted out, hey, Molly's going to come for me. I know, I've talked to her. She's a gamer. She's going to come for me at some point. And I want you to know that if you hear her say my name or anything, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm not really that close with her. Like, as soon as she starts to come for, as soon as you see her, it's like, say my name or anything, I will jump ship and I'll go with you and we can blindside her. No problem. I have no problem with that. And that was my attempt to give myself a little bit of a backdoor from what I perceived was starting to be my threat level going up. You see it? So while, it played out the way it played out, but I think that's the right strategy. And for all we know, Matt could have been doing that. But I just think that he got voted out for being too close to Franny. And if he wasn't trying to put pieces in place to minimize that as a give himself some other options, that would have been a miss. And he is now voted out.
Yeah.
Same thing with Brandon, right? Brandon, big, athletic, he should have known. Merge, you're the target. That's he should have just assumed that to be the case, because that's just how this game goes. So Brandon should have said, okay, I'm the big athletic guy. I'm going to soften my presence. I'm going to make real connections, try to tug on the emotional strings of my tribe, try to nerd out a little bit, right? On this season, right? He should have changed his style a little bit to see if he could get in with a Carson, right? To see if he can get on the same level as those type of players, so that he's not just this big looming threat. So that's what I mean. You can mitigate your natural threat. And because it was so easy to vote them out, I'm not so sure that they successfully did that.
Yeah, I am much more team Brandon on this also. And I feel like that there is a way out of each of these situations. I just do feel like that you do pass a point of no return also in these situations where, potentially if Matt was in the same tribe swap scenario, but did a lot of things differently from the second he got to that beach, it might have turned, but by the time they're having that conversation, he might have already passed the point of no return. I asked Brandon today about, was there anything that Matt could have done differently to get out of that situation? And he talked about how, Matt was saying a lot of things that were not believable to Brandon, and was acting super paranoid about getting his bag back and stuff like that. So there may have been a way out. It's just that for Matt, to have realized what it was probably too late by the point that they were even having that conversation.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
And just to tie it back to you, of course, that you got put into one of the worst situations.
with the beware advantage before
the beware advantage before it was a beware advantage. It was what did it say?
It said, take me, I'm yours.
Take me, I'm yours. Where's the beware? Where's the beware?
I know. Honestly, anyone could tell me those words and I'd fall for it all over again. It's just that enticing.
Yes. That's the Valentine that Matt and Franny are going to exchange.
100%.
Yeah. Take me, I'm yours. And then, wow. And then Boston Rob said, hey, you don't get a free lunch, Jamal.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he's passing out watermelon. And
yeah. Hey, Nora, you want to have watermelon?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot has been made of that moment, and I agree with what everyone says just to make me look more of a victim. I appreciate it. But
Mm-hmm.
if we're all being very honest here, there were a lot of factors that went into me being a very clear vote at the time that I did. I came
Mm-hmm.
out too hot in the beginning, started doing all the puzzles for the tribe. I'm, that big, athletic, imposing figure. I'm causing friction by being hungry and tired and not letting people make fire, right? Like it piled up. It piled up,
Mm-hmm.
and it just broke under the weight of, okay, well, it's not me, it's that dude over there coming back on a boat and doing a last hurrah. So yeah,
Yeah.
I do not hide behind that as like the reason why I got voted out. I think there were a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we are here only to celebrate you today, Jamal. This is not a performance review of what happened in season 39. I do want to touch on something else from season 39, though.
Sure.
That Carolyn,
Yeah.
who has been like the breakout star of the season, even though this might have been like the lightest Carolyn content, other than her getting caught in the net, we really didn't get a ton of Carolyn in this episode. She has cited in the preseason that the biggest thing that changed for her was she saw Nora play in season 39. And that's one of the things that gave her the confidence to apply for Survivor.
Wow. I did not know that about her. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing. I'm so glad that all of that happened because we are absolutely gifted with the presence of Carolyn on the show. She's wonderful. She really is wonderful. And if you just close your eyes and listen to what she's saying and take away all the affect, she says pretty astute, normal Survivor stuff. I think it's just her big movement and her quirky way that kind of clouds people's ability to actually assess her strategic ability and know-how. She
Mm-hmm.
is doing as ingenious stuff as any other player out there, if not more so. And I just think that's great that people like her can play this game and find a footing, because too often, right, it is the zany weirdos that are the first boots for that reason. They're the outcasts, they're ostracized, whatever. But she is great. She's really, really good. And I'm enjoying watching her play.
Yeah, she's been such a uh, revelation in the season and has done so many fun things. I think it is very interesting in terms of like where we are in terms of the meta of the game, that the people who are sort of like the most polished, sort of like, okay, traditionally, okay, this is the person to watch out for. He, she, they are like, they have it all put together.
Mhm.
Watch out for that person. And so now it's almost like you need to come into the game like in camouflage. As we saw that the winner of the last season was hiding in plain sight. I almost feel like that is like the next level of like meta Survivor strategy of how do you come into the game as a person who can win in a package that does not look like somebody who would traditionally be a threat.
Yeah, that's it, right? That's absolutely it. With the camouflage metaphor, Elaine Stott,
Yeah.
Elaine from my season, that was her whole strategy was, I'm just a Southern bumpkin. I don't know anything. Everyone else around me is using big words. I don't know what's going on, and it really
But
fooled people.
Jamal, she knows, but she was like almost like too polished. Remember Ronnie Barta at the first try? He said, "We don't vote out Elaine tonight. She's gonna win this whole thing." And even like in her boot episode, it was like, "Yeah, we gotta vote out Elaine. She'll win if we don't vote her out right now."
Right, because she
It
was
was
too
too obvious.
she was too likable. She
Yeah.
was too likable. It wasn't because she was too strategic or perceived to be too strategic. She just was really fun and really great. And I think that's why she got so deep in the game, to be honest with you. Right.
Hmm.
So I do think, whatever version of, yeah, I don't know what's going on. You tell me, like, you seem to know a lot about Survivor. What happens now? I don't know. Tell me who to vote for. I'm just, like, if the more you can kind of do that believably, right? You don't need to be, too obvious about it. But I think that's right. I think that's the move, especially for early days.
Hmm.
You know.
going back to Carolyn's preseason interview, she told Mike Bloom, what's your history with watching Survivor? She said, so I've watched since day one. And honestly, it wasn't until seeing Nora in season 39 that I was like, okay, there are people who are a little different who play this game. Other than Debbie, I thought she was like awesome, but that quirkiness, that weirdness, I didn't feel like I'd be able to fit in out there. So it was not something I thought was attainable until I saw Nora. And then seeing Marianne win on season 42, I was like, oh my gosh, it is possible. And so just watching so many years and not ever really feeling like there was anybody I could relate to very much. And then seeing Nora and Marianne, who was her beautiful, authentic self. It's like, yes, it's possible. I can do this.
Guys.
Yeah. Can you compare and contrast what you've seen from Carolyn with Nora?
Compare and contrast. I think the contrast is that Carolyn actually knows what's going on. I think Nora didn't quite. Nora was athletic. She was good at challenges. She had some, empathy to her, and she had a real like people skill, especially with the girls when after the merge. But the reason why she didn't get any votes at the end was because she couldn't tie it all together. She couldn't express that her game was her intentional strategy, right? She just left it in this like, she didn't tie it together. And I feel like if Carolyn gets to the end, she will be able to say, I went in knowing this about myself. I played up certain aspects of my personality because I knew that you all wouldn't take me as, what I'm saying? Like, you have to own it at the end. And that's going to be the difference. Should Carolyn get to the end, I think she would have a very different outcome.
Carolyn just knows the show and knows Survivor much better than Nora did. Nora was probably one of the people that knew the show the least coming in to your season. Is that fair to say?
I think that is fair to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And Carolyn is like a real like diehard Survivor fan.
Mm-hmm.
So she knows what she's doing. And so she's able to combine sort of like the best of Nora with also somebody who has like a really strong base of knowledge in the game. But part of Carolyn's story has been that repeatedly, like, people don't believe her when she is saying things. Like, she feels like that I have info, I know things, and people aren't taking me seriously.
Right.
Do you think that is something that could ultimately doom her in the game?
No. Like I said, so one of the montages in the beginning of this episode was a bunch of the Tika, right?
Mm-hmm. Tika, yeah.
A bunch of Tika explaining to us that no one is taking them seriously. Yeah, right. Everyone is underestimating them. It's a funny word in Survivor. I'm not quite sure what that means, but it's a funny
underestimate.
Yeah, underestimated, right? Like that's what people seem to tell us a lot. Like, they're underestimating me. They're not taking me seriously. They don't think.
Carolyn said that she's looked at as the turkey of the tribe.
She did say that. She did say that. But like, I don't know. It seems like she's having a real emotional experience about that, and that's maybe touching a little bit of her true life experience.
Mm-hmm.
But she has to know that that's exactly what you want people to do, right? That's exactly what you want to have happen. That's to fly under the radar, sit back, underestimated. So it's kind of weird that all of them seem to be expressing this.
All three of them said it.
Exactly. They're all expressing it as like, oh, okay, they don't think we have it. Like, they're underestimating us, like, later for them. But like, no, they're underestimating you. Good. Lean into that. Keep doing what you're doing, because that's exactly right. Like, you should be underestimated at this point. So your question was, will that be a detriment to her? And I don't think so. I think she's going to be able to say at the end, you fools, you thought that I didn't know what was going on, but I did. Mm-hmm. And I made moves, and I hid the fake idol, and I, sussed out the alliance between the boys and went with the right vote and all of that. She's going to be able to articulate how her personality, her strategy all came together that got her there at the end. And I think that is going to go over really, really well at Final Tribal if she makes it.
Jamal, you said you wanted to talk about the Misfits, of certainly which Carolyn, Jam, and Carson are at the center of.
They are, but it was said by
Heidi.
Heidi.
Yeah.
I used to be really annoyed with this trope of, this is high school all over again, the cool kids, the nerd. Like, I am so done with that storyline. It seems to come up every single season. I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
You should watch
However,
Big Brother.
I bet. Yeah, Big Brother probably has a whole bunch of that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Even if you are a misfit, even if you are the nerd, not the cool kid, like, come on, man. Like, your high school experience, your college experience is so much more rich. If you remember that time, you have so much deeper friendships than what you
Mm-hmm.
believe to be the jocks and the mean girls and the cool kids who have very vapid, empty relationships with each other that seem fickle, that don't last. I don't know. It's just like we have to flip that whole thing
Yeah. Stand up, survivors.
around. I think so, right?
You're
And
better than this.
however, it's what this episode did though was it challenged that notion for me, because it seems to be a glue, right? It
Mm-hmm.
seems to be a bonding point, and what is Survivor except for a 26-day long search for
Mm-hmm.
binds you to people, right? And you can use anything, right? And if it's going to be misfits, the nerds, the outliers, the outcast, if it's going to be that, latch onto it,
Mm-hmm.
use it. I just think as if it's any kind of like true commentary on how people are actually feeling out there, I think that's really sad.
Yeah.
But if it's just strategy to say, hey, you and me, we're misfits, then okay,
Yeah. But
roll.
you know what the problem honestly is? Okay. And maybe take Brandon out of the equation, former NFL football player. I think that the entire cast probably identifies as misfits.
Absolutely, especially this cast, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's not a thing, and I don't even know who Heidi is like comparing herself and themselves to in contrast that like makes them feel like they can bond around this moniker. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Um, yeah, I think this whole entire cast seems to be of
Yeah.
that's
These people are like
girl.
people that are obsessed with Survivor. That they're not all like the most well-rounded people that you've ever met that were the quarterback of their high school football team.
Yeah, it's changed, right? And honestly, if I'm being honest, I am missing a little bit of the dynamic that we've seen in past seasons of a group of people out there who know the game and a group of people who don't.
Yeah,
I, I do miss that.
it's a really good point, Jamal, because that and you were a big part of the diversity initiative, and we have like we strive to have like, okay, we want to have people like as diverse as possible that we're watching on the show, but in this one area, like it's very homogenous of like these are the people that are all like super obsessed with Survivor to the point where we got to stay ahead of the players by making the game almost impossible to follow, because the players have all been like our wild Survivor super duper fans.
Right. Yeah. I want more confessionals that are like, wow, I did not expect this. What the heck is going on? I thought this was one thing, but it turns out this is a whole nother thing. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
this is real out here. Like, I want somebody to really be struck by
Yeah.
the magic that is Survivor. And we're
Well,
not really getting that because they're all gamers,
sure. And Jamal, and it's I think appropriate for this week where we lost the beloved Keith Nale,
Mm,
who is a person that every Survivor fan loves. Keith Nale loves watching him on the show, and he was a guy who like it was interesting to follow his story because he did not know what was going on the show,
right.
and that created for really fun moments
Amazing.
of having a person who was out there who just like was really out of his element.
Yeah. R.I.P. Keith Nale. He man, I did not get the honor and pleasure of meeting him, but it has been such a joy to read everyone's
Hmm.
thoughts and prayers and just be reminded of how consequential of a Survivor player he was. Like, he was around for a long time and played with some of the greats and our favorites and went
Yeah.
deep. into the game often. It's amazing.
So yeah, he played in season 29 and season 31. So basically like two, I guess it must have been two falls so the fall of 2014 and then fall of 2015. So like 2 years in a row. And it was just like a really, really fun time to, be so involved with Survivor in terms of everything that was going on there. It was I felt like from my perspective, it wasn't like there wasn't as much like uh uh like a divided like fan base, and like for the most part like the people that were like posting about the show were mostly positive. This might have been like the beginning of when like the worm started to turn,
Mhm.
but it was just like a really, really fun time to be talking about Survivor, and Keith Nale certainly contributed a lot to that.
100%. If I may point out one moment among many, there have been so many that
Hmm.
are just memorable, and you call up when you remember his game. But I loved this one moment where he's trying to do a confessional, and it's deep into the game. He's hungry, he's tired, he like hasn't eaten anything, and I think it might be the first time that Survivor broke the producer wall and actually
Yeah,
showed us him struggling to answer the question. Do you remember this? He
I don't off the top of my head.
yeah. So there's a moment where the producer is, he sits down to do his interview or whatever, and the producer's like, oh, okay, so like, what's going on at the challenge, whatever. And he tries to go, and he's like, all right, let's go. I should know how to do this by now, right? So we were at the challenge. You know what? I messed up. Let me try that again. Let me try that again. I'm hungry, y'all. I'm hungry. And he just like, we got like a good like minute of him struggling to do his confessional. And how
Yeah.
endearing is that? Like you really saw the humanity of the game in that moment. And that's what he brought.
Hmm.
We need
Yeah.
more characters like that.
More characters like Keith for sure. Um, so let me start to bring in some questions from the listeners of the podcast, and I have a couple other things that I want to get your take on as we're going through all of it. Let me just go back to um, the Heidi of it all. She had the slip up this week where, and again, you tell me if maybe this is like galaxy brain, that maybe it wasn't a slip up. What she ended up telling to Carson and Jam Jam, but for the life of me, I have not been able to figure out if you are trying to convince Carson and Jam Jam to vote with you, why tell them Danny has an idol?
Yeah. Yes. I was confused, as I think you and Steven were, as to what her strategy was, right? Like if she's trying to flip the vote to be 6-4 against Brandon, but knows that Danny is going to play an idol for Franny, then she didn't need to do that work. And that's why
Hmm.
Danny was a little annoyed, because he was like, what? No, I just wanted to keep it to 4. Like it just needs to be us, and we idle out the rest
Yeah.
of the votes.
And what was interesting with Danny wanted to keep it to 4. So he wanted to keep it to the 3 Soka and only Carson, not Jam Jam. And it just is interesting that of the 3 people from Tika, you would feel like that Carson would be the least close to Danny. At least Danny like got to go on that lunch with Carolyn. And how did Carson? This guy is good. Like, how does he winning the Ratu felt like, okay, he's one of our numbers.
Yeah.
Tika feels like he's one of our numbers, and Danny is like, hey, he's in my inner circle. I'm telling him the plan.
That, excuse me, it's that. And this is how you sniff out a really, really good Survivor player. And actually, this is going to take me on another route here
Please.
too. But yes, Carson might be the MVP of the social game, because it is pretty remarkable what he's been able to do at every stage, right? He got in great at his original tribe, switched tribes, and nobody was targeting him. In fact, people were all trying to work with him, right? He's smart as a whip, but like so disarming. He's so disarming. Like when you watch him, like even in that conversation with Danny, where he's telling Danny that Jam Jam knows, he's like, it's okay. I'm gonna like surveil him. I'm gonna sit with him. I'll watch him like a security guard. Like, don't worry, Danny. I'm going to execute your plan, and that is gorgeous survivor strategy. Make people feel like you are a soldier in their plan, so that they do exactly what Danny did. Trust you. Think that you're going to be
He's middle management.
That's it. That's it. And man, it is masterful to see. It really, really is. I think he has some things, in his favor where he's a little more slight and is maybe feeling a little ill at this point in the game, as we heard and saw.
Yeah. Jamal, did you ever have a point when you weren't feeling well out there?
Oh my gosh, I was a mess.
Yes.
What
happened?
I had all kinds of medical issues going on for me.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I got bit in the eye by a mosquito. So
oh my God. I didn't even know that could happen, Jamal. I'm not going to sleep ever again.
I don't know what it is. This has happened to me double-digit number of times in my life. I don't know why that is. You're right. I don't actually
double-digit times.
Double-digit times I have been bitten in the face, close to the eye. I don't know why. But yeah, it got me real good there. I was actually on a blood pressure medication before I got out there, and so got off of it because the diet was so radical, right? The change in diet was so radical. So I actually had to get off of it. But what that did was it thinned, sorry, TMI everybody, but it thinned my blood. So my blood pooled into my ankles.
Okay.
So I had these gigantic ankles the whole time, and it was super painful. I like scraped up my back on that first challenge where I like flipped over the thing and slid down on my shoulder. It was very physically demanding. Luckily, I didn't have any like internal stuff. I didn't feel queasy. I didn't have any of that. But it was all just like externally, and it was so uncomfortable. It's just uncomfortable to just sit in that, and your body doesn't heal. That's the thing that's really interesting. Like when Matt was talking about his shoulder. Was it Matt? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Matthew, right?
Matthew.
Yeah, his shoulder, and it wasn't healing, and it was just painful. That's real, everybody. Like when you're not eating like that, a cut on your skin does not close. Like you think like, oh, it's just a scrape out there. It doesn't close because your body just doesn't have the nutrients to heal itself.
And not to mention the humidity and everything. Like,
yeah, really gross.
So it really he seemed miserable. And like, not to mention like, and I was very fortunate. I don't think I really ever had a time when I didn't feel well when I was playing Survivor, but it just seemed like, it's not like you could just like curl up in your bed, you're still like laying, at least like crawling on the ground. It was like very, and then you got to ride a boat to go to be in a challenge. Like you can't like call in sick to the challenge.
Yeah, honestly, the boat was the reprieve, right? Like because you got those cushions
to sit.
To sit for a little bit. Yeah.
All right, so we're sort of here. So Annie Abrams wants to know, says my favorite every season, talking about you. Would love to get Jamal's opinion on Heidi telling Teak about the idol. What he thinks the fallout from the split vote will do to their relationships with Ratu and Soka, and what he thinks about the split tribe second merge vote.
Awful.
Yeah, awful. He did not like it. He wanted production to do a do-over.
No, man, like what are you doing? Well, we're gonna go down this whole road again, but just to answer the question, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's especially the way it's done. Like I would like to be able to interpret the purpose of a twist. What are you trying to disrupt, Survivor?
Yeah.
We've gotten, big alliances to run through, the smaller alliance vote after vote, and that got boring. That's why we do the split tribal and the swaps and all that. Makes perfect sense. What did this accomplish? What were we trying to avoid by doing this weird like split and then go to separate beaches and you can't bring your stuff? It's like the players just don't have ability to react strategically to the twist. Like why? I don't get it.
Yeah. I think that the idea was that they did not expect to have 2 medical evacuations. I think that they probably expected to go into that round with 12. And I think that they probably thought it was going to be a split into 6 and 6 instead of 5 and 5, like they've done in the last few seasons, to try to just keep it differently. I think that they do like having a smaller pool of people that can be voted for at the tribal council. I think that they really like the idea of nowhere to hide. And I think that they might also feel like in terms of telling the story, it is easier when it's like, okay, well, it's either this person or this person. It's not like, 6 different people it could be.
Well, if you listened to On Fire today, then you know that, if they're on a mountain and they're skiing.
Oh, yes.
I'm not going to go through that whole
That was wild. That was a wild analogy.
It's a wild analogy. And Jeff Probst loves his analogies. But
Yeah.
seriously, his point is
it was a wild analogy, Jamal, because Jeff said on the On Fire, he's like, the best way to describe, for anybody who didn't listen, and I listen to it every Thursday morning, but the best way to describe editing a Survivor episode is like, imagine you're on a mountain, and then there is like somebody there are people skiing, and then there's like an eagle soaring, and then there's also like an avalanche happening on this other thing. But you have to crop the photo to see what are you going to put in the frame in your house? And Jeff said, well, if it turned out that it was an accident that was like a really like horrible accident, then you'd frame the photo of the avalanche. Like what? Why are you being like this?
Doesn't mean the eagle didn't fly and the skier.
Yeah. Why would you this was a deadly avalanche that killed a bunch of people. I'm going to frame that for my house.
I know, a little strange, but to give him his props, he's making a good point, which is
maybe if this was like you were making like the front page of the newspaper, but I don't know why you'd want to frame like a devastating avalanche in your home.
Yes. The metaphor though is that where the drama is what they're going to show you, and it doesn't mean that the other stuff didn't happen. It wasn't consequential. It just is. This is what we want to see. We all want to see an avalanche, apparently.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's a question from Maddie Flav, who says, love you both. So excited for Jamal to be the guest this week. People are hyped, Jamal.
Thanks, Maddie.
Okay.
Thanks so much for being hyped to hear us go
on. Get more Jamal. He always brings a thoughtful perspective to the show. My question is about the Tika 3. If they end up playing well enough to be the final 3, what does Carolyn need to do to beat Jam Jam and Carson? We've seen Marianne beat 2 men in the final 3, but it's pretty rare for a woman to take the win, especially since we've all seen how overlooked and dismissed Carolyn has been. Does she need to cut Jam Jam and Carson early in order to have a better shot? Thanks.
Great question. I will challenge the premise because I think Erica and Marianne would have some things to say about the rarity of women winning in the new era. However,
especially against 2 men.
Yep. And however, I do take her point with these particular 3. It would be a particular challenge for Carolyn to win, probably sitting next to Carson and Jam Jam, not because her game wasn't good, but I do kind of think Carson and Jam Jam could probably talk circles around her. And that's just style, right? That's just going to be how are you going to convince people at the end? Because there have been some powerful speakers at the end of these games who have won, and I think they really do sway people with their ability to articulate their game. I don't think Gabler had it in the bag. I think Gabler won it, by the way. Well done. I don't think I think the Matt is it Maddie? That's the name?
Maddie Flav.
Maddie Flav. I think Maddie Flav is correct in that Carolyn might need to take them out and try not to sit next to them. However, I think she has a shot, whoever she sits next to, if she is able to articulate her game the way that I suggested, which is to describe it as like intentional, purposeful, right? And she needs a big move. She needs a big move. The idle hiding in the beginning of the game, we already forgot about it. It's not going to carry her through the win. She needs to do something. Maybe not take out Carson and Jam Jam, but she needs a move, 7-6, attributed to her that she can say, fooled ya. I'm actually out here, playing the game.
I really do think it is going to be hard for Carolyn to win in that particular configuration, because I think that based off of what we're seeing, even if she's able to like articulate like what she was doing, that I do feel like that those other 2 people that she would be sitting with, I'm not saying that there's not a combination that Carolyn couldn't unlock to win the game, but against Jam Jam and Carson, you have Jam Jam, who I really, couldn't say enough good things about the way that he handled his business in the last episode. And even at that tribal council where Matt went home, I compared it to being like a final tribal council. Like, I mean, he just hit all the, he had humor. He had, like a charm. He like then was like the, had like tear jerking moments. He was like amazing at that tribal council. And then you also have Carson, who I think also is going to be able to articulate it. So I feel like that for Carol, I'm not saying that Carolyn can't win, but those two might be like maybe the best two people in like that are out there, or in the like certainly the top grouping of people that would be at a final tribal council. That's a really tough road for Carolyn, especially when she is not perceived as being like the key decision maker in that group.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And you also have to think about who the jury is, right? So if you think about
Yeah.
Brandon and Matt, of the three, the Tika three, who might Brandon and Matt be drawn to? I don't think it's Carolyn, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the jury makeup is going to be really important, and that's why I think she has more work to do. If there was a final three today, she would lose.
Yes. I think she's got to, like, much like Marianne did, of like, hey, I'm going to take out Omer at the point where he's the biggest threat in the game. I think that Carolyn is probably going to need something like in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The great James Jones has a question for us. He wrote in to say, is it time to eliminate the floaters?
Okay. Did he answer my question about what a floater is?
He did not address what a floater is. And that's, could be a subject of great debate for, especially when we bring Big Brother into this.
Yes. Well, there's some aqua dumping that can come.
Oh, yes, certainly.
Conversation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are we assuming that floater just means someone who's like going along and just kind of hanging around?
Yeah, I think the people that are just like going along, just people playing the middle, but not sort of like actively playing the middle like we're seeing from the Tika. I mean, who would the floaters be? I mean, I think that'd probably be hard to say. I don't think there's anybody in this season that like, would you say like, is Jamie a floater? Like, other than that, like, who are the floaters?
I actually don't know that anyone is clearly a floater. Like, I don't know much about Kane's game right now.
But Kane was in it with, Brandon. I think that he was, I don't think that he was necessarily floating. He was not necessarily like a key cog over at Ratu, but don't feel like that he was necessarily like up for grabs.
Yeah. I honestly, I do think this season is unique in that, and as you know, I am not going to do the prediction game. I know there's a question on there who's going to win. I will not do that at this point.
Okay.
I think that there is a really unique set of players left that I kind of could make a case for everybody, right? If certain things fall for each player, I kind of can make a case for everybody, and that's really awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really cool place for the game to be, where no one person is like getting the winner edit, which Jeff swears is not a thing, but that's not true. So yeah, I actually don't know. I don't know who would make it.
Really, the floaters are the Tika tribe in terms of like that they are sort of like floating back and forth, and very actively so, not necessarily like a coaster, like we might say in Big Brother. Was it a mistake for, Danny and Brandon had this golden opportunity? They went to the summit and they broke down and they said, you look, you're awesome, that you're awesome. Let's work together. Let's do it. And then they got to the merge, and there were the three, Tika that were sort of like ripe for the picking. And if not, ultimately, they felt, okay, well, Carson was part of Ratu now, but there was Jam, there was Carolyn, and ultimately that, I don't know, I think maybe it was because Soka wanted to go after Josh at the first vote. Like, it's like, okay, well, you want to go after one of your own? Okay, fine. We'll do that for whatever reason. But it really did kind of throw off, like, if Jam goes at that vote, maybe Carolyn goes next, and they end up sort of like going after the people in the middle first, as opposed to ending up now in the situation where they're going after each other.
Right. Honestly, I agree. I think this was strategic blunders by Danny. I think he's targeting the wrong people. I agree. Because I don't know who he has left to work with socially.
Mm-hmm.
He's just eliminating the people who would want to work with him. I thought Brandon was his best shot at like a true ride or die, ally in his game. Is Franny's going to be his ride or die now? Like, I just don't see it, So yeah, I think it was a mistake. And I think Danny and Brandon in an alternative universe should be the ones that are running the table here.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any thoughts about the plight of Josh in this season?
Oh, Josh, man, I like Josh. I like Josh a lot. And I
Like a
think
nice guy.
nice guy. And I just feel like he was just so misunderstood. He's the kind of player where I think we would be really, really good friends in real life. But if I was playing the game with him, I would get far away from him because
Mm-hmm.
I have a sense that people just weren't quite gonna get on board with his whole vibe.
Okay.
He just didn't have the follow through in his lies. I think maybe that's what it is. He was just really unconvincing. Like if Jam Jam tells you a lie, which I haven't seen him do yet in any full throated way,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he would be good at it. Or he would sell it, right? He would be like, "Oh my god, I don't know what happened. I didn't know who to vote for," right? Like he would make it big and like believable and
Mm-hmm.
genuine. Josh just kind of lied, like he threw away lied, right? He was just like, "Oh no, I'm not a surgeon. I'm not a surgeon."
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, okay, and like I know you're lying. You know what I mean? Like it's just it didn't quite. He didn't quite have the social grace to like really work the scene,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
he didn't have a good read on the situation, right? Like you guys talked about it, right? Like
Yeah.
he
You have
thought
to like lying.
you have to like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you kind
I
of
think
do have to
so.
like to be out there. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to like lying to be a good liar.
yeah, yeah, for
I
sure.
don't think that Josh liked lying.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. And the players who can put that away, like Tommy is a great example from my season, the winner of our season. Like he just decided that even though he's a teacher and he's this honest person outside, all bets are off. I get to lie, I get to cheat, I get to steal. And he seemed to really enjoy it. He seemed to
Mm-hmm.
get off on the game, which is, the attitude you need to bring to this thing.
Okay. How about this question from Hartley Jaffine, who wants to know from you, as someone who found the hidden immunity idol in Danny's position, once you reveal you have an idol you've kept hidden from everyone else, is it the safest move to use it that night just to remove the target on your back?
Well, I mean, again, no hard and fast rules here, right? Because I actually think there is a world in which you threaten the use of the idol to move the vote in the direction you want it to go, and then you don't play it. We've seen that happen a couple
Mm-hmm.
times in Survivor history, right? So I don't think that's a bad move at all to use the threat of an idol as a strategic bludgeon, right? To get people to vote the way you want, and then you don't play it, and now you have the vote, you have the idol for the next time. So I don't think it's a must. Even if people know you have it, you can use that knowledge to your advantage without playing it. You just have to assess that that's okay to do, right? Because obviously the risk is that they vote for you or put the majority of the votes on you, and if you don't play it, you go home. But if you're in a good enough position to really work your idol in such a way where you're confident that the votes are going where you want them to, or at least they're not going to land on you, you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to play it if people know you have it. You don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk of Lauren's name, but I think that she's been actually somebody who's done a good job of sort of like, yeah, I have an extra vote. Everybody knows I have an extra vote. So what?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's the threat of it. If we believe anything that Heidi has told us about her control of vote, the threat of her having the extra vote actually limited the ways in which Heidi could mess
Mm-hmm.
with what Lauren wanted the vote to be, right? So that's a good example, actually, of the existence of the challenge, the existence of the advantage, and the knowledge that she had the advantage actually worked in her favor to thwart any funny business, right? With how that vote played out.
All right, Jamal, I have a voicemail for you.
Oh,
Okay. A
a voice
voicemail this is from Burn. Okay.
burn. Who's that?
Hey, this is Ben from Toronto
I
calling.
think Ben had a typo in his name.
Okay, Ben, got it.
Okay.
I actually have this question for Rob and Jamal. I always love the Jamal podcast and really excited to hear what you have to say, Jamal. You're just like such a smart and down-to-earth guy.
Oh
I was thinking about this tribal
Down
council.
to earth.
And if you just showed this to an average viewer, they would tell you that this was like out of the late 20s or early 30s in Survivor seasons,
right.
Rather than like the more recent pre-New Era seasons where there was a lot of trust clusters and sort of fluid alliances that were constantly evolving. This went back to starting tribes with a tribe in the middle, an idol play that was successful. Really, a la Kelly Wentworth playing her idol, a la some of the stuff happening in the late 20s with Tony and Wu sort of jumping back and forth and being in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I feel like maybe in the context of Survivor getting so complicated, the gameplay is actually reverting to a simpler style without all of the advantages and extra votes, and people are playing more conservatively because of how complicated the game has gotten. So do you think that I'm onto something? Is in the next couple seasons that are being filmed, are players actually going to play a little bit more middle school rather than new school because the game is so complicated and they need to sort of adjust to that based on their gameplay? Excited to hear what you think. I'm not sure if this is the case, but I think it's an interesting discussion point.
Was it a burp or a yawn?
It was something. It was
something took Ben by surprise. I hope it wasn't like a Carson situation. So I'm a little confused about the question. I think that there's some interesting things there, but I'm a little confused about. Obviously, Ben liked this last vote. Says it felt like out of Survivor in sort of like the late 20s, early 30s, which I think happens to be the like most interesting point in terms of like where the game was complicated enough to be interesting and unpredictable, but simple enough for it to be explained clearly on television. So this was similar in how this vote ultimately unfolded. I thought the question was going to be that as the game becomes more complicated, are players going to have to just revert to simpler strategies because there's too much going on?
Mm-hmm. I think that might be just a different organization of the same question, right?
Mm-hmm.
The complicatedness of the game is forcing players to play more simply, which for Ben harkens back to a simpler time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day when Survivor was great. Make Survivor great again. I did it. So I think the result is the same. I just think the motivation is a little bit different. I don't think it's the complicatedness of the game that's forcing the simple play. I think it was just the absence of the complicatedness that created the conditions for a simple, I don't even want to call it simple because it was pretty complicated, but a straightforward Survivor play, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, this is what happens, right? You take away all the funny business, right? You take away the split tribes, you take away all the crazy advantages and permutations and mergatory and all that, and you just put 10 people out there who started off in 3 tribes, and the natural thing to do is to start thinking about us versus them. Who are we going to go with to get the numbers? And then once that is known, if someone has an idol, they just basically flip it, and that's exactly what happened. So I just think it's more just like the natural design of the game without any interference that lends itself to this kind of result, right? It's not the fact that it's so complicated that people are playing simple.
Mm-hmm. On a similar note, Saint Lakata wants to say, hey, Rob and Jamal, with the plan to vote out Franny so wide open and the new era fairly without secrets, could the shorter season be the reasoning behind it? Perhaps not enough time to form tighter bonds. So is sharing info a way to build trust? Thanks so much. I don't think I've ever heard it so cut and dry, but we did see that with Matthew earlier this season. He had that conversation with Carson where he said and I commented at the time where he's like, okay, now as a way to build trust with you, I'm going to tell you something, and instead of just like saying the thing and building the trust, like he sort of said like, okay, this is what's going to happen next. And we've seen like, is that ultimately like when you don't have time to like have like the small talk and like get to really know each other. It's like, here, let me just info dump the secret so you trust me.
Yeah, I think there's something to that one. I do think there's something to that one where you got to be fast. You got to be fast. What's the quickest way that I can get you on my side? It's hey, someone has an idol. Trust me, right? I think that's right. I think that's right. However, this leads me into a bigger point that I kind of want to make here, which is I think it's a missing element of the modern era of Survivor where the players don't have more opportunities through game design to build trust. Here's what I mean. Back in the day, do you remember these challenges where every person had 3 ropes and you had to one by one go up and cut the person?
The coconut chop. Yeah.
Yeah,
of course.
that thing. And there's iterations of that, right? The coconut chop, and there's some other ones where like you go and like
mask smash and
that's right. And the last person surviving is the winner of the immunity challenge, and ostensibly it's like the person who like is in the best graces of the tribe or who has the least friction in the tribe, right? Because you're always going to cut the rope of the person that you don't like or whatever, right? I think Survivor needs to bring back kinds of experiences, either through challenges or a public vote, maybe, or some more like opportunities for players to extend trust or extend a gift, extend some kind of symbol that you are working with that person and you're actively working against that person, right? Something like that, some mechanism where the social game works its way into the actual mechanics of who gets what.
Yeah,
right?
maybe a reward challenge.
Yeah, a reward challenge. Like we still do this, right? A reward challenge where you get to choose, who comes with you. But I think there needs to be more of that, because here's what I think is a problem right now. If you're a good social player, the only way that benefits you is not getting voted out and getting voted for at the end. That's it. Right. Yeah. Whereas what if there was some mechanism in the game where if you're doing really well and you're really popular and no one hates you and you're tight with everybody, let's have a way, like let's have a mechanism in the game where that gets rewarded, or you're in the best position to gain something because of your social prowess.
What if we gave everybody a coin, and then when players get voted out of the game, they can give the coins to the person they like the best?
Well, yes, that is a novel idea, Rob. Really interesting, unique, never.
But is it fun, Jamal?
That I don't think is something we need to do again. But okay. I do think we're missing that. I think we're missing something like that, where because you're in tight, because you're not causing friction at camp, because people like you, they feel bonded to you, they choose you, or you get some kind of advantage in the game going forward. Because as of right now, the social game is kind of falling by the wayside. And it does say it's a big pillar of what Survivor is supposed to be about, but there's no real mechanism of the game right now that is highlighting that for us as an audience, and it is useful for the players in the game. What do you think?
I definitely hear what you're saying. I don't know if necessarily it's going to be the type of thing. I don't know how necessarily we could show it a lot. Like I do feel like that we've done like different challenges where it's like, okay, you get to pick like who gets what to eat, what, like there's 8 pieces of food at the reward, and you get to like hand out who gets what. Like I think that there's different ways that we've seen versions of that before. But I don't. It is the hardest thing for Survivor to show is the social game.
Yeah, but I think what the negative result of not having that is people are like, later for the social game. I'm just gonna stick around. I'm gonna search for idols. I'm gonna be a beast of challenges, and I'm gonna be on the right side of the vote, and that's all I got to do, right?
Honestly, like I feel like
where's the work? Like a player like Suri, for example. All she had was her social game, and it was masterful. And I think we are losing the ability for a player like Suri to really shine in this game.
That's a fair point. I just feel like that Survivor doesn't care about the social game, and that's just not something they're trying to like. They would rather maybe you have a bad social game, where that there was fighting, even though they don't really cast people that have like brutal social games anymore. I just don't think it's something that they really are interested in highlighting on the show. They're more interested in like
Well,
how
then
do we get
but
people playing things.
okay, well then flip it around then. Like do something where if you are being a bad social player, then
Mhm.
then the tribe gets to decide in some way, some mechanism, a silent vote or an auction, or something where it is obvious that the tribe hates you and you're gonna, have some detrimental experience because of it. I would love to see that kind of story told because then you get this like new incentive of like, oh, I actually have to like work my connections here. You don't get that Brandon type who can just kind of rest back and feel like he has the numbers and he's just sitting pretty, you
Okay.
know.
What about the rock draw from last night? Okay, survivors, pick a partner. Did that illustrate anything social game to you?
No, right? Because
I mean, Carolyn, Jeff talked about on the official Survivor podcast about how but she was the first person Carson was sick, and she threw herself into like, I'll take Carson. I don't care.
Mhm, sure. It said something. It definitely said something. I don't know that it was consequential in the way that I'm looking for, though, right? If it was something like, the person who volunteers to be with this person gets this reward that they wouldn't
Mhm.
have otherwise gotten, something like that. But yeah, that was a moment to kind of learn who's prioritizing what. But the problem is that nobody knew what the pairing up was for.
Yeah.
So you like if it was to me, I would be like, put me with the weakest person because this might actually be a me
Squid
kind of
Game.
situation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's not me being benevolent. That's actually me being cutthroat and wanting to position myself
Y-
to win in a particular scenario. So, it didn't really say too much because we didn't really have the players know what it was for.
All right, Jamal, we're 2 hours in.
Oh,
Let's give the people something. I want to talk about the fart heard around the world.
oh my goodness. 2 hours in, and we're gonna finally get to the main character. The
Yes,
main
the
character of the
main character energy, Danny's fart. And could not believe the audacity
audacity.
of Danny.
Yeah.
And I feel like that Jeff played it off well and was not offended by the whole thing. So, Jamal, what was your reaction to not just so many different aspects? One, that it happened. Two, that Danny did the setup of that, hey, Jeff, guess what? And then three, that it aired. They put it in the show.
I'm confused by this line of questioning. First of all, Jeff loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he played it off. I think that's right up his alley. Two, I do not by any stretch think that was the first time Danny has done something like that. He's absolutely that guy.
Now, he is a guy who practices his breath work. Do you think that he can do that on command?
No, no, no. I wouldn't go that far. I think it was just it was storing up. He had his body tensed, right? He was in
Yes.
that position. It's harder to kind of hold back
Mm-hmm.
the innards in that particular position, and I think he had to let one rip. And how much more awkward would it have been if it wasn't set up the way it was?
Mm-hmm.
And that much more wasted of an opportunity if he just tooted and just didn't make it a thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And do you know who watches Survivor? There are lots of fans of the show who
Mm-hmm.
loved it. Absolutely on the floor, dying laughing, giggling their behind off because of that moment. And I'm so glad that they received that kind of entertainment. It was high quality television.
I'm just trying to think through in 44 seasons of Survivor. I feel like, is this the first flatulence storyline in Survivor history?
I'm having trouble calling up
I
any.
feel like that we would know about it. I feel like that certainly survivors have had severe gastrointestinal distress.
Who had that? That
Still
seems
Stephen Fishback among many. And certainly like survivors have had issues with, going to the bathroom. Either they can't or they can't stop. But just in terms of gas, I don't really recall this happening before. I'm sure somebody is going to send me a link to the funny 115 tomorrow,
one
but
one thing that I
yeah.
think I remember is a lot of confessionals and commentary of women being grossed out by
Mhm.
men who are not all that hygienic.
Okay.
I don't know if that means farting or just, coughing and smelling bad or whatever, but I definitely in the earlier days feel like there was some stories around like he's just a gross man.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. It seems like that there was something about I'm looking back to in Millennials versus Gen X. Daniel Feinberg for the Hollywood Reporter did a write up, and apparently, there was something going on with um. He says the fart and belch fest that was Vanua's reward win was a bit gross and not nearly as funny as Blazing Saddles. And yes, that's the standard to which I hold my fireside fartathon. If
Hmm,
you aren't going to be Blazing Saddles, keep your gas inside. So I don't know.
okay.
I guess that there must have been some farting in Millennials versus Gen X.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to imagine up any cast where that took place, Millennials versus Gen X would be the one. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And I think that now do I have to like delete my search history after I've Googled Survivor fart? It seems like that there's been some Australian Survivor issues.
Rob, I don't know who you're pretending for, but this is also right up your alley too. I think you're loving this. I think you're just putting on a front because you have kids and a family and all that. So it's okay.
Yes.
You can let your
Also, apparently, Kat Ederson. That I think that this is from a 2013 interview with Steve Helling. Talked about how maybe that Kat Ederson was also um, passing gas. When Kat Ederson played Survivor One World, she was known for her goofy antics, dancing, cracking jokes, and farting on her fellow castaways. Now, farting on people, I don't know. I feel like that's I feel like that's a red line.
that's a step too far.
We're going too far.
That's a
Yeah.
step too far. You can't be close enough to someone 40 days for that to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Um, is Danny a game changer? Will we see more contestants now? Did Danny change the game where more contestants in these endurance challenges now? Or we've gone from like, oh, Christian Ubicki is going to pepper Jeff with questions. And now it's like, okay, Jeff is a captive audience. And now we can just like, who can like, perform bodily functions during the challenge.
I don't think it'll be exactly this, but I think some iteration thereof. I think people are going to look for their moment
Mm-hmm.
and they're captured on
Yeah.
on a pole or whatever.
Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube now, Jeff.
No, you welcomed it. It's just like negotiating for rice. Like now, just every tribe now is going to think that they can negotiate for rice, and that's just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. That cloud is the genie out of the bottle. Okay. All right. Dunkachino wants to say, Jamal, your game was famously screwed over by a new twist in the game, the advantage in plain sight. To what extent should players such as Matt, who left his bag of tricks at camp, be held accountable for these game-altering mistakes? At what point is the new twist simply unfair? I guess, do you want to talk about the bag issue that Matt couldn't get his bag of it all?
Yeah, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's a weird ancillary element of just logistics out there that had real game consequences for a strong player, and that just shouldn't happen. That's akin to like something happening in the tents, with the producers like off camera, like affecting the outcome of the game. Like nobody wants that, right? People want to see people go home because of their own poor gameplay and really intelligent, smart, strategic play of others. That's it. It shouldn't come down to this kind of stuff. And if it is an expectation that you need to have your bag and all, then make that the rule. You know what I mean? Just make that something that you have everyone aware is a possibility. Very strange.
Mhm.
I did not appreciate that. Now, I know a little something about
Oh.
leaving your bag,
Yeah.
because apparently in the first tribal council that I went to, where I got blindsided, one Jason Linden made a big deal about the fact that I didn't bring my bag with me to
Oh,
tribal
yeah.
council.
Yeah.
He made it into this whole thing that, look how comfortable you feel and how arrogant you are that you didn't even bring your bag because you just were so sure that there was no chance of you going home. And I got to tell you, I was the most like bewildered by this energy, because I was like, what are you talking about? Like, if I go home, there is nothing in my bag that I care about. Like,
That's a great point.
why
Yeah.
do I have to bring my bag? In fact, now that I've seen this play out, it should have been a clue to my tribe mates that I didn't have anything. If I'm
Mhm.
comfortable leaving my bag, I don't have an idol, I don't have an advantage, I don't have anything that I could play. So why does it bother you so much? I understand now that it was a little bit of like a play on his part to get the heat off of him and make this whole spectacle, whatever. But in general, especially the way that people reacted to this moment, you would have thought that I committed like survivor faux pas number 1 on the rule book. Like, oh, don't you know you're supposed to bring your bag to tribal council? Who doesn't bring their bag to try? I was so done with this story. I just didn't understand it. So I feel actually a little bit vindicated in that, like, there was nothing in there. So
Mhm.
it wasn't a blunder of mine. It was actually a clue to all of you that you shouldn't feel threatened by me having an idol. I tell you what, when I found an idol, I brought my bag. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I don't know. The bag coming, going, being with you or not, I don't think that should be an element of the game. That was strange.
Yeah, it just seems like such technicality of that you have to take your bag everywhere. It's like, oh, Patrick Mahomes didn't bring his uniform to the game, so he can't play today. Oh, okay, I guess the Chiefs are just gonna have to play without him because he doesn't have his uniform. It's like you just figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay.
Like, because we're the fans and we want to see Patrick Mahomes in the game.
That's right. That's correct. That's correct. And I don't know.
Hmm.
A little behind the scenes, sometimes the producers will give you a little bit of a heads up about what kind of challenge it's going to be, so that they can tell you, like, hey, you're going to want to bring your water shoes, or you're going to want to wear sneakers, or you're going to want to wear a shirt because we're out in the sun, right? They'll give you a little bit of a clue to, like, be prepared with the stuff you have to successfully execute the challenge. This should have been in that category. Someone should have said, hey, you're definitely going to want to bring all your stuff with you because there's a possibility of something, and maybe just
Hmm.
there. But, like, don't let you know the pattern of not having needed to bring your bag to the challenge be the reason that played so heavily in Matt's demise.
Yeah.
That was
It's
strange.
just too much red tape on that. Okay. A couple more. John S. wants to know, Kane, we haven't really talked about Kane, has been on the wrong side of the vote 3 times. He tended tribal. He's on an Owen trajectory. Leave Owen out of this, please. How long can you flounder at the start and still recover enough to win? Should Kane consider leaning into his ineptitude to keep his threat level low and build an underdog story?
Absolutely, he should. And honestly, if I have to out myself or remind everyone that I was actually an Owen stan, I actually
Hmm.
did pick him to win because my time with you
Popular winner pick.
later in the game. But I actually thought that that element of Owen's game was a positive. I thought it was positive, like, he didn't know what was going on, and yet was so adaptable, was on his toes. The game didn't go the way that he wanted, and he was completely out of sorts, but he still found a way to win. I mean, it's a true, like, Phoenix Rising type story that he can start to craft for himself. He needs something, though. He can't ride
Hmm.
that all the way to the end. Like, he needs to at some point figure it out. But I don't think at this point in the game, him having been on the wrong side of the votes is going to, completely disqualify him from ever winning. There's so much game left, right? We have 9 people left. Like, this is significant backstretch here.
Jamal, are you a Dungeons and Dragons guy?
I am not a Dungeons and Dragons guy.
I'm not either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not. I've really I think there are elements about it that might be interesting, but overall I've come this far.
Yeah. It feels a little too late, doesn't it?
It might be too late. But yeah, he loves it so much. I mean, if it's like Kane, he's always talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
Power to him. Power to him. I've witnessed a round.
Yeah.
And I have surmised that it is indeed too late. That ship has sailed for me.
Yeah. Why am I here? Says, okay, I'm kind of nervous to ask questions, but Jamal, do you think that any of the 3 remaining RHAP members in Jamie, Lauren, and Kane will have any way out of the sticky situation last night's vote left them in? Is there a chance for them to get someone else on their side? We haven't really talked a lot about Lauren, who won immunity in last night's episode. She had a really great moment where she said she was going to do it for the kids. She went to hug Jeff. I kind of thought that Jeff recoiled. He said that no, he actually loves hugging the contestants.
Getting covered in mud. Yeah, that's his favorite thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Lauren. Yeah, let's talk about Lauren. Lauren's great. Lauren is really, really great. She has an incredible energy about her. I love her hair. I love her energy. I love her motherly spirit. Her kids are proud, both in school and her actual kids. And yes, I am very proud of Lauren. She deserved that. I think she was getting a little purpled right in the beginning, and we got a little nervous about that. But I definitely see that she's going to have some kind of impactful story going forward. She's really shaping up to be a fan favorite. I really, really like Lauren a lot.
Okay, so where does she go from here? Okay, so all right, she still has her extra vote. So she okay. The bad news is Brandon is gone. Good news is she still has an extra vote. So potentially at the final 9, it's if she is able to hold on to Kane and Jamie, okay, that's 3. They're still gonna need one other person to or vote with them to at least get it to 5, and 2 people if they're going to flip it. But I do think that there's a chance that Tika ends up coming back around and says, "Okay, Danny, now you go out."
Right. Yeah, and to her question, like there's no writing on the wall that says that they're just gonna blast through the rest of Ratu. Is that the tribe?
Ratu. Yeah.
Not a chance, right? Like the whole point was to even the playing field and kind of start the game fresh, even, right? And that's what we have. So yeah, there's no target on that group of 3. And what's really funny is, right, Matt, during his interview with you, insisted that there's no, like, the players are more complicated than tribe lines out there. Like, they're all talking across their tribe lines. No one's playing that simply, like, Ratu versus Soka, right? That's not quite encapsulating the complexity of the relationships out there. And I believe him, because I think that has to be true, right? That has to be true. So
it is interesting though. We're at the final 9 and it's 3, 3, and 3.
Right. But right, like it can't stay that. Like, what does that even mean? Right? Like, I'm trying to think of 3 blocks of vote. It's not going to be 6-3, right? Or maybe it will, but I just think there's so much.
It is interesting. I don't know if we've ever, like, again, I'm gonna have to ask the historians of, like, have we ever had this before in a 3-tribe season where we end up at the final 9 3-3-3? I feel like that we had 4-4-4. Was it in season 42 that we came into the merge 4-4-4, but it didn't go like we didn't get down to 3-3-3. It's very rare.
It is.
I don't think it's ever happened.
Well, I mean, this is amazing. It's the first time for everything. They in football, when the end score happens,
scoregami,
you know about this. Okay, yeah, exactly. Oh, of course you're a football fan. Yeah, scoregami, right? Which is where, for all of those out here listening that don't know scoregami, it's when there has never been a final score of that particular configuration before ever, right? And so every once in a while, you can imagine, like, whoa, 51-22, that has never happened before. So now that's like scoregami, a new score. This is that, right? Like,
I get tagged on tweets, Jamal, when like there has never been like a 6-2 to 1 to 1 to 1 vote before. This was history.
Oh, is that right? Is there scoregami in Survivor? Okay, wow. I'm not privy to
Please, whoever does that, tag Jamal on those posts now.
that. Please don't. Actually,
Come on.
that might be a little too far down.
Yeah.
I've stayed away from Edgic and all that nonsense. I can't do all of that.
But you could do votagami.
Okay, sure. I can look at it.
Yeah. Okay. Next week, what are we feeling? Feeling worried about Danny?
Yes, definitely worried about Danny. Well, worried might be strong. I enjoy watching him. I won't say that I'm rooting for him necessarily, but I enjoy his game. So if he is the target, I will be happy that others of my faves here are not
advancing.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. Jamal, anything else from this week's Survivor?
No, right? I think we did it all.
Anything else from the whole season?
Let's see. Early days. I think Brandon's story, just to end on him, because this is his episode, and I want to just maybe end on his swan song here. I think this is really fascinating. I think Mike Bloom has a really awesome article out now that kind of highlights the bookends, right? He was saved by the idol. He died by the idol. And I think that's a really kind of full Survivor story for him, right? To kind of ride that wave of the idol kind of as a part of his game. And so I really like the way Brandon reasoned out his original idol play and how he like didn't really trust Jamie. So he didn't want to just have that secret with her and didn't want to like give her that power over him to have the idol. I thought that was really smart. That was a really smart play. Unfortunate because he couldn't like use the idol for the rest of his game. But fascinating that was the only 2 tribal councils he's been up for a vote, right? Is that what happened?
Yeah, well, he wasn't up for the mergatory vote, and then he was immune last week.
Yeah, so he saved himself, and then nothing, and then he got voted out, which is kind of a wild Survivor journey, also. So he has some interesting perspective. I'm excited for you to have a fuller conversation with him about his game.
Yeah, I mean, they don't let me have that full of a conversation anymore these days, Jamal. But what are you gonna do? Jamal, besides Survivor, what you watching anything good on TV?
Oh my gosh, Rob, am I watching other things on TV?
Yeah, it sounds like this is like a setup for something really good.
Well, it's just I'm consumed by all the incredible reality television out here right now.
What are you watching?
I watched all of Traitors.
Okay.
Incredible. Absolutely phenomenal showing by one Serene Fields and other incredible characters that came out of that. Loved that show. I was skeptical at first, but it really landed. It was a slow burn, I think. And then it really hit.
Would you play a show like Traitors?
100%. 100%.
Would you do another reality show?
Absolutely.
I feel like that they keep making more of these like Avengers reality shows.
Yeah, of that ilk. I
Yes.
don't think I want to do, any of that dating stuff.
Well, sure, certainly. The challenge, though.
I would do the challenge. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Get me in the hallway or whatever it's called.
The hall brawl.
The hall brawl. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. So Traitors was incredible. I apparently all of the world was enthralled by Love Is Blind season.
Love Is Blind. Yeah.
First of all, terrible show. But
yes.
So addictive. It pulled me back in, Rob. I was done after last season.
Okay.
I said I would never watch the show again. I just didn't think it was ethical. Like I had some real issues with the setup, the people that they were, casting. I thought they were really being taken advantage of. The ultimatum, I also felt that way about it. Felt right. But this last season of Love Is Blind, there's a lot to say about it. But let me just highlight, because I am me and I care about the things I care about. Brett and Marshall relationship goals. Like I want to be in a friendship with the 2 of them and every other man like them, because I could not get enough.
Brett Marshall, Love is Blind. Okay.
Emotional maturity, their articulation, their respect of women, the way that they showed up with their full masculinity. Oh my gosh. I just was weeping every time they were on screen together, more
Okay.
than their, relationships and all that. I was like, the two of them are what I
They
wanted.
just met in the pods and they became best friends.
Yeah, that's it. They didn't know each other before, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah, the love is blind, but the friendships are like you get to go and like it's like you just hang out with all the guys, and it's like yeah, there's like that might be a good reality show to be on of like, hey, I'm gonna meet like, hang out with like 20 guys, and maybe one of them's gonna be my new best friend.
yeah, yeah, those ancillary relationships. You
Like
go.
I didn't meet any women, but I got a new best friend.
That's what happens. You go through the fire together, and you come away with something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if anyone hasn't seen it, I just want you to pay close attention to how these two men carry themselves, and that's the epitome of Black love and Black men for sure.
And check out our coverage of all of Love is Blind over on robisawebsite.com. Asia and Mary talked all of it through, including the finale. Were you left waiting in the lurch on Sunday night for the finale?
I was there. I had my popcorn. I was tuned in. I clicked refresh 100 times. I saw AOC tweet about it, which was wild to me.
Mm-hmm.
That we're all just watching this silly thing, and then have lots of opinions about how terrible the finale actually was. But I'm going to leave that to the professionals to break down. But I just agree with the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That finale was not great. But
Okay, it's Traders, Love is Blind. Anything else?
Traders, Love is Blind, Ultimatum, Beef.
Oh, yeah, we got through Beef, did a podcast about that last week. That was great. Yeah.
Very, very good. I'm also watching what is this show? Oh, it just left my mind.
Well, Carolyn was feuding with Russell on Twitter, and it started like innocently enough that they went back, but then they kept escalating. And I was like, oh my God, this is turning into Beef season 2.
Wait, Carolyn and Russell Hantz
Yeah.
are beefing on Twitter?
They were going back and forth. Yeah.
Well, Russell Hantz is way out of his league. He needs to concede.
Yeah. And it kept escalating. I'm like, I've seen this before.
Yeah. Oh, I just remembered. Sneaky good show.
Yeah.
Jury Duty.
Oh, I'm gonna watch it next week.
Watch that show.
Okay.
So good. So good. It is a cross between like Punked and
Joe Schmo, I've heard. Yeah.
Joe Schmo, exactly. Yeah, it's that vibe, but it's so entertaining. I love it.
Okay. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah,
all
really
right. Good. And then Jamal, where can people keep up with what you're doing?
Oh my goodness. Well, I know people don't come here for the politics, but I've definitely tiptoed my way back into the fray on Twitter and just.
Oh, okay, because I felt like the last time we were talking that you were very not doing so much of the social media, but now you said Twitter is getting good again.
Twitter, not as like a space.
Very sad. I lost my blue check mark today.
Oh no! So
glad. It seems like Elon was focused on the right priorities today. Apparently,
you couldn't afford the $7 a month.
Well, I would buy it. I just thought people are going to make fun of me if I buy it. Like,
right.
I was like, oh yeah, I run a business. Like, it probably would be good to have, but then people are going to be like, loser.
Well, is there a
idiot?
Rob Cesternino impersonators out there?
No, there's nobody's impersonating, but I do think that your tweets like get more like visibility. And I guess like if I was just like a just random person that was like, these tacos are awesome, but I am trying to get people to listen to my podcasts. Yeah. But I kind of feel like if I buy it, then people are gonna like dunk on me.
I think that's right. I think you're caught between a rock and a hard place. You got to
like, yeah. Like if it wasn't like so like politicized, I probably would pay the $8. God knows, like I probably pay for like a much bigger waste of money than $8 to like get my tweets seen. But like I think people would just like bully me.
Yeah. That's probably true. You gotta get on TikTok, man, before this thing goes away. I think
I'm on it. I'm on TikTok.
Are you there?
I don't make a lot of TikToks, but I watch a lot of TikToks.
Oh, sure. As we all, right? No, I think you need to put this whole thing, this whole franchise on there and just clip the fun parts and put them up there. But anyways, yes, you can follow me on Twitter, JammanK9, Instagram, JammanK91, Facebook, Jamal Shipman, much less so. I am on TikTok, but I don't really post anything.
Yes.
I'm following all the TikTok stories. I'm plugged in.
Yes. Why did you say back in December, don't buy anything from Twitter ads? Did you get something bad, or don't support the people that buy Twitter ads?
Oh man, I don't remember that. For what inspired that?
Yeah, don't buy anything from TikTok ads, because I bought I was watching a commercial for oh, it's a ball that plays with your dog for you. And I was like, okay, I paid $20.
For it.
It came from China 5 weeks later, and then it broke the second that the dog got a hold of it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, unfortunately, that is the risk. That's the risk. It's a roll of the dice, Rob.
Yeah,
quality impulse buys myself, but
I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect. My dog is going to be so entertained, and it did not happen.
Didn't work.
Okay. But Jamal, I always love our conversations. I appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing all your insights. That I feel like that you always have such interesting things to say about the game, and it's just a highlight always for me.
Thank you. No, likewise. I look forward to it, and you say as long as I keep watching this show, I will be here. And
you have a Money in the Bank pass. Anything you want to, or if you want to talk about anything, reality or scripted or different, it doesn't always have to be Survivor. Talk about whatever.
I might jump on there and about some of these other ones. I've definitely developed some theories about the world building of reality TV shows. So yeah, I definitely have.
What do you mean by the world building of reality TV shows?
Oh, if you were trying to end the podcast, it is not going to.
Well, give me the log line of the elevator pitch of the world building.
Elevator pitch, right? I need an example. Let's say Love is Blind, right? The point, right, is that it's an experiment, and they're in the pods and they don't see each other, and then they fall in love, and then they see each other, right? That's the mechanics of the show, right? But the world of the show, right, is more about how much the show buys into their premise and drives that premise all the way through. I think it gets really uncomfortable when you're watching a reality show that doesn't know what it is yet. And a show that I think is the perfect example of this is the first season of The Ultimatum, right? If you go back to that first season of The Ultimatum and you're watching and you're like, I feel like they just started filming and then they cobbled together whatever happened, right? There was no real driving theory. There was no real intentionality to the show. It just was, and you could almost see the people kind of realize what they just got themselves into, and that's uncomfortable, right? Nobody wants to see that. People want to see people who intentionally signed up for the thing and buy into the premise of what's going on, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that it's interesting to sort of tie it back to Survivor, because I do think that the first season of Survivor does not know what it is or what it wants to be or what it's trying to show. And then I do think that the world building and the worldview of Survivor has changed a lot over 44 seasons of I think that it used to be a little, really a fundamental question of what would you do to win $1 million? And then I'm sure it changed in lots of different ways over the years to the point where, hey, what are you going to get out of this adventure?
The experience. Yeah.
The adventure, the experience. It's not about what will you do to stop at nothing to win the $1 million? It's how far will you push yourself to, get the adventure that you deserve?
Right. And not only that, especially going further back with the themes and the places, there was a narrative, right? You were marooned and you're these people stranded who are getting to know each other. And then every challenge had this thematic story that connected them. And they had tokens and they had all this. There was a lot of problematic stuff with old Survivor too.
Not ideal. Yeah.
but at least there was like this cohesive narrative. They've definitely gotten away from that now, but they have a different narrative now. It's more like fun and come, like you said, like explore, do this adventure, push yourself, see how far you can push your own limits. Like, and that's fine. It's fine. I'm with it. I'm here. But every show needs something that anchors it, right? Because as soon as you start to feel like the show doesn't know what it is, I think that's when it becomes an uncomfortable
Big Brother. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, Jamal, thank you so much for making so much time for us here tonight to talk about this episode of Survivor. Of course, our Survivor coverage is just getting going because we've still got all of these Survivor wrap ups coming your way. Be sure to check those out in our Survivor podcast feed. Plus, I will still have my feedback show with Ali Lasher coming up on Monday night. If you have any voicemail questions, send them in, rob@website.com/voicemail. And of course, be on the lookout as well for my burning question, where I'm going to explore whether or not we made, I think, a lot of good points about maybe not so great to play your idol for your alliance. I'm going to go back and take a look through Survivor history and see how it's worked out for folks as well on the Survivor burning question. So thank you so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.